What is up, RotoGrinders? Good morning, 9:30, 9:35, technically on the East Coast. Buckle up. We're taking you all the way up the lock. It is the People's Show. It is Week 15. We're celebrating the old quinceañera for the NFL. There's some weather out there that's lurking. There's a lot of body parts we have monitoring. We're keeping an eye on because some players have to be questionable right now, namely the Dolphins, right? Tyreek Hill is currently questionable. Devin Achane is questionable. Bobby, with his best ball shares, is very, very concerned. I imagine that Achane's going to may or may not play or may be limited today. Bobby was well ahead of the field on Achane, and whatever teams have progressed forward, I would imagine he's probably on those lineups as well. Let's say hello. What's up, Bobby? Welcome to the show. The people were speculating. The reason why we're a couple minutes late is that you were waiting at the door for a pumpkin spice latte. It's so funny because we were talking our cash game build, our general cash game build, and coffee before we went on air. So there you go. GR sauce was on top of it. Not specifically a pumpkin spice latte, which I feel like I'm going to speculate is probably not in your wheelhouse. You tell me.
It's actually a pumpkin spice iced coffee, Dean. You know, we're not out of season yet, so just
it tastes amazing now. But like if in March,
I'm not a latte guy, but I'm definitely I like a little pumpkin spice in my life prior to Christmas.
That's a really bad take, Dean, that you didn't think he liked pumpkin spice. He's got pumpkin spice written all over him. I mean, that's
how does one have pumpkin spice written all over them? Like I don't know.
I don't get that one, Tim. I think you're taking a jab. So you can't fade pumpkin spice, especially when. Well, I guess we're getting towards Christmas, so.
The only thing that helps me is like, again, if you think the beverage tastes great, pumpkin spice, enjoy it, have a good time. But why is it only something that people want in December and they don't want to drink it in March? It's the same drink. I suppose temperature matters.
Not a season. It starts in the end of August to Christmas, and then it's pretty much over, right?
That's the thing with me.
That's a long season, Bobby, for pumpkin spice.
maybe I go a little overboard, Tim. Maybe I go a little overboard. Maybe I like my pumpkin spice. You know,
that's what I was saying. That's what I'm saying.
As a Florida guy, we don't really have seasons down here, so it's a kind of a foreign. I mean, I'm aware that temperatures change and it goes from hot to really cold, and leaves fall on the ground at some point as well. But hey, I didn't officially say hello to Tim. TastefulTides, Tim. Good morning. What are you drinking today? Are you drinking a pumpkin spice latte as well, or some water?
I'm just drinking regular iced coffee. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy at all.
No whipped cream in there or anything? No caramel? No bells, no whistles?
No bells, no whistles.
Is this a home brew or is this you actually like it like a door? No, there's no DoorDash where you're at. That doesn't exist, right?
There's definitely no DoorDash where I live. Absolutely not. Maybe somebody will deliver it by boat. That might be what happens. Yeah.
You're in parts unknown. You wouldn't give a stranger your address over the interwebs. There's no way you would do that.
I mean, if he was bringing me good food, I would definitely.
Theoretically, yeah. Well, that's the guise of. Who really knows what's going down though? Tim, week 15. I didn't give all the official body parts, but I'm sure you know what Bobby loves himself some Davis Mills. He's probably bummed Davis Mills is not playing today. Case Keenum is drawing the start. I always hear Bobby just kind of give like a little bit of a tout to Davis Mills as much as you can. Admit it, Bobby. You secretly a little bit bummed.
Davis Mills was good. He went to Stanford, right? If he had waited a year, people would have said he would have been the number one pick, and now he's just completely done. I would have why isn't Mills playing? Why is it Keenum?
I don't know. I guess they think Keenum's better than Davis Mills. But I'm not really sure why. The other problem, of course, is that Houston is just like all around them. There's a whole bunch of injuries as well. The total in that game, and that's kind of one of the big themes of this week is 7 early games, 3 late games. The 7 early games are as follows. The Falcons take on the Panthers. 32.5 is the total, and I believe there's some weather issues there as well. Some terrible quarterback play. This is the one I think it's going to be like raining buckets. I believe that's what Roth had to say. Let me go ahead and get his weather report. I'll go ahead and drop this in chat for the people as well. Let's see. It's going to rain buckets in this game all game long. Plus, we've got winds around 15 miles per hour, gusts around 25 miles per hour most of the game, potentially up to 35 miles per hour late game. The wind-rain combo makes this very ugly weather overall. 32.5 is the total. Does not really appear to be a game that looks particularly appealing amongst the 10. In Cleveland. Cleveland is officially yellow-orange, according to Kevin Roth, 37.5. Fields versus Flacco. We have the Giants and the Saints. They are in a dome, but like two. I guess I shouldn't say Tommy Cutlets and the Giants are an inept offense, but and good for Tommy. It's a fun story. Do we know yet, Bobby, who's going to be playing Tommy DeVito in the movie that comes out in a couple of years? Mark Wahlberg's too old, obviously, now, but who's going to be playing Tommy DeVito? We should cast it. Let's see if the chat has for us. Who's going to be playing?
Maybe the kid who's playing Willy Wonka there?
Chalamet,
yeah.
I don't know if he's athletic enough, but it's funny. I had this conversation with somebody else. They threw it out too, and he seems maybe he can bulk up. I don't know. That's a good suggestion, I suppose. Let's see if the chat is a better answer, but 39.5 as far as that total. Chris Olave officially questionable. The reports were not very positive. I think it was Rappaport that said basically suggesting that it seems unlikely he's going to go. And if he does go, it seems like my guess is he would be at least somewhat limited. Again, we've yet to hit a total above 40. Here's probably the best 1:00 game we have. That's Tampa. Tampa at Green Bay, 42.5 is the total. Then the Jets are in Miami, 36.5. The Dolphins, our Dolphins, are in a game that is a 36.5 total. That is wild, the way they played so far this year. But, of course, the Jets have a good defense. The Dolphins, their offensive line is gone. Their initial offensive line for the start of the season, my understanding is that everybody that was on that line is unavailable for today. We don't know about Tyreek Hill. He's currently questionable. We don't know about Devin Achane. He's currently questionable. It is also windy. I'm not right around the corner from Miami Gardens, but I'm about a half hour away. I did step outside. I'm curious how windy it is. 15 to 20 mile per hour sustained winds, according to Roth. It is officially yellow, so not freaking out, but just acknowledging it. Houston, stop me if you guys like these games, by the way. We'll talk about all of them to various degrees. Houston at Tennessee, 37.5 is the total. Case Keenum, the aforementioned Case Keenum versus Will Levis. It's not a great one. KC at New England, 37.5. The Chiefs, just a 23 total. That offense is not what it once was. New England, hard to see them being a team that punches back. They are home dogs, almost 9 points. That is the early slate. Wait, no. Did I miss the game? Yes, that is the early slate, Bobby. And the 3 late games: Washington, the Rams, 50.5 total. San Fran, Arizona, 48.5 total. Now there are some potential blowouts there, but San Fran and LA, the Rams, that is, they both look spectacular. And then Dallas versus Buffalo, a desperate Buffalo offense. They really, really need to win this game. They want to make some playoffs. Playoffs. Yeah, they want to make the playoffs today versus the Cowboys, 2.5-point favorites. It's very clear, Robbie, just kind of the way the slate sets up, and I'm curious how you're attacking it. But the first 7 are pretty uneventful. Certainly, we'll get some surprises. It's the NFL. That's how it happens sometimes. And the back 3 are more appealing. How are you handling that? Do you see it the same way? Are you going to zig with another zag? What's the approach here as far as lineup construction?
I'm currently pretty backloaded. I feel like a lot of people will be. Obviously, with the totals what they are, it's not the greatest slate, but the best games are in the 4 o'clock window. So that's where I'll probably be attacking. I am going to try to do some things differently in tournaments, definitely in 3 max and smaller field stuff. Going to have CMC and Zeke and Kyron, but in GBP, in the big Millie, I should say, I'm going to try to get away from one of them because then the 3, that's where we're seeing the ownership condense. And I think running back is a very strong position on the slate. Maybe that's a bad take, but I think it's a lot stronger than what we realized. We had the conversation prior to coming on the show. You throw Antonio Gibson in the cash conversation along with Kyron, CMC, and Zeke. So he's just another running back that I think that's there. The opportunity is there for. So yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. But usually when ownership condenses like this on a position that's already strong, that's where you really want to get away. But really haven't figured out where I want to go in terms of zigging and zagging. So interested in breaking it down with you guys.
Yeah, we're going to talk our cash game build and kind of work out from there. But Tim, I am curious your thoughts on that. just like the slate dynamics. And I am pulling up. We did get an ownership update as of 9:00 in the morning, so a fresh batch of ownership should be coming in. The running backs are pretty clear as far as for cash. I think we're going to have that conversation now. 3 of 4, 3 of Antonio Gibson, Zeke, Kyron Williams, and CMC. They're all popping for either, great spot or, good value. But Tim, how are you handling this as well? Are you backloading? You could sort of stack one of the early games, and if it does really well, kind of adjust your lineup based on, okay, now I was going to be a little bit, a little bit ambitious, a little bit off the board. I wasn't going to all the chalk at 4:00, but now maybe I could just put the chalk players in and come get me, because I already hit the nuts early. Your approach, and then we'll talk about our cash game stuff.
Yeah, definitely the popular way to go is to backload your teams because that's where the best games are. I'm definitely looking at some running backs, though, that I think that are really, really strong pivots that are in the early games. So I think if you can hit some of those early pivots, you can get away from some of the chalk stuff in the late games. Definitely, though, when I was making my shell cash game team, I'm pretty sure 6 of the guys were from late games. So it's definitely a backloaded slate. So that's certainly the chalk way to go about it today.
The chat wants Ryan Gosling to play Tommy DeVito. He's 43. So I think he's too old to.
Someone in chat said Harrison Ford. I thought it was hilarious.
I did not see that.
That's good humor. It's quick. It was immediate too.
He's a good actor, but probably not happening. I don't think that's going to work out. Maybe if it was so many years ago. But you remember many years ago, Mark Wahlberg did Invincible, the walk-on kicker for the Eagles. Do you recall this movie?
I recall. I'm friends with Mark's nephew.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I went to high school with him. We used to torture his life about the about being Mark's nephew. Yeah.
What you were you were razzing him? Who's your uncle, right? His uncle's Mark Wahlberg. That's pretty good.
No, I know. It's obvious. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely the rebuttal, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just doing the songs and all that stuff. He was younger than us, so it was we were just trolling a little bit.
All right, Tim, what do we got as far as our cash game construction? I think producer Steve's going to throw it up on the board as well for the people to see. Are we officially locked in? We're going to kind of debate back and forth on it. We did talk about 3 of the 4 running backs, and here, Steve has our shell cash lineup. We're not going to fill the entire thing out for you, but walk us through what you got.
Yeah, so definitely the first 4 guys I think are absolute locks in cash games. You start off with Matt Stafford in an amazing matchup against Washington. Only 6K. That's the obvious choice at QB for cash. Then C-Mac. What else? What is there really to say? He's a top raw point guy on this slate. He's going to be very, very efficient against Arizona. I think that's a really easy play. Kyron Williams again against Washington. Amazing spot. So I think those 3 are easy locks. And then Jaden Reed against the pass funnel Buccaneers at 4,900 with no Christian Watson. He should be the focal point of that offense. We've got both Jones and Dillon kind of banged up. So who knows what's going to be happening in that backfield. So Jaden Reed at 4,900, I think, is a absolute cash game lock as well. Chig, he's definitely popping in some optimals. I think that you could debate going a different way. I think personally, I always like to punt tight end and cash. So that's the way that I'm going. But I think he's not an absolute stone cold lock for cash.
If you have the salary, you probably want to get the McBride. You might not have the salary is the thing. If you don't have $100, I guess you can go to Tucker Kraft. Right, Okongwu is 3K. I think Kraft is 2.9. But is it fair to say tight end probably the last position you're filling out? You're not going to get the Kelsey. You're just not going to have the money for it. Same deal with Kittle, with the likes of that. But
that's the last skill position I'll be filling out. But honestly, defense is the last position I'll be filling out today, to be honest with you, because I think that is like, it's pretty ugly.
I think I guess we'll talk about it. There's a lot of like good defensive matchups on paper, and I'm not going to step on Bobby's toes. But Bobby's all about that defense. Yeah, there's a lot of expensive pieces, but I'll tell you one that seems sacrilege. One that I'm considering today, and I kind of hinted at it before. The Dolphins' front line is not good right now. Their offensive line is in shambles, and the Jets have a really good defensive line. I think the Jets are pretty interesting at 2.5. It's going to be windy as well. Dolphins team total plummeting at 22.5, and we'll see if Tyreek plays or not. We'll see if Achane plays or not. We saw it's a small sample, but we saw his Miami offense kind of sputter in the absence of Hill when he was dinged last game versus Tennessee. But I might flat out punt it. And if you're going to flat out punt it, like punt it with a good defensive unit. And you can also give up 27 points and still get there with like sacks and turnovers, and you can fall into a touchdown too. You never really know how predictive those are. But that's kind of where I'm at. I know, Bobby, this is your turf, but I'm curious if you're interested in the Jets or how you're handling defense.
Yeah, I like the Jets D a good bit for all the reasons you gave. I also like the Pats down at 2,300. I think they're pretty interesting. I would prefer the Jets in cash, I think, with the weather and everything and the offensive line issues. And they're not playing actually they're playing the Dolphins, so they're actually better than the Chiefs. Maybe saving the 200 and going to the Pats isn't the worst thing. Yeah, that's my breakdown, Dean. Defense today.
The chat is still talking about who's going to play Tommy DeVito, and somebody just said the kid that played Jackie Jr. in The Sopranos. Jackie Jr. in The Sopranos is like 50 years old. Maybe he's like older than that now. The Sopranos happened a long time ago. Then he's aging with the rest of us. So
I was watching Sopranos highlights yesterday. You ever go on YouTube and just watch like rerun highlights, like funny? It's got to be the greatest show of all time. It's
Curb is another one. Curb is another one. I'll just like kind of like, well, here's Larry and arguing with so and so for a half hour, and just you don't turn away from it once it's on. It's like, oh, this is fast. This is amazing stuff. Final season Curb coming up, by the way. R.I.P. Curb. It was a good run for sure. But I hate to say it. I think it was Broccoli Boy, who I never want to agree with Broccoli Boy, but that's your boy, Tim. In real life, you got a real life friend. His name is Broccoli Boy.
I'm surprised you didn't block him from the chat.
No, I would never. I would never do that. Free speech advocates. He actually had the best answer. Is the dude from The Bear, from the Iron Claw movie, which I want to see. Jeremy Allen White, who's formerly of Shameless as well. I think that's probably the best answer. He's still like 30 or something like that. He's not aged out completely, but that's the best answer we got so far in the chat. Matthew Stafford at quarterback. Man, traditionally, Bobby, I just want to play quarterbacks that have legs. I just want to do that. But he's cheap enough, and the matchup is so good, and he's got the ready-made pairings. He's in a dome this time of year. That Washington defense is horrendous. I feel like you're supposed to play, and I'm not putting rules in. I don't build 150, and you do this stuff. I'm curious what you're doing. I want to play at least one Ram on every team. I want to play at least one Niner on every single team. I don't like playing players like Matthew Stafford, who kind of has to get 303 to get there, right? And he's just not going to run it in unless he somehow falls in from the one. I don't even know if they have a tush-push in their arsenal, the Rams. But, he's looking like, I believe he's the most popular quarterback on the board by a fair bit. 21% ownership. There's going to be 20 quarterbacks divvying it up, 5% for everybody. If that's how it went, that's not how it goes, obviously. He's almost twice as popular as the next person, Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Tommy Cutlets. What do we do with this, Bobby? Because, Stafford can only put up so much, but he also can go 404, I guess, if we somehow get some punch back from Washington, which we can. Howell falls into it sometimes. What are we doing with this, mega number on Stafford, on TK specifically, where he's 6K?
Yeah, I'm playing Stafford. I just think he's the right play. It's a great matchup. It's a great matchup for all of his weapons. Washington, since they fired Del Rio, has actually been worse in terms of like their coaching. And yeah, schematically, it's a very strong matchup for these Rams guys. So I'm playing Stafford, playing a good bit of Purdy too at 6'8". Like Purdy's just, whether he's a game manager or he's a guy who wins games, he's attached. He's just a great quarterback for fantasy currently. So
It's a pizza
I have no
maker.
issue. I have no issue with him. Yeah. I think Jordan Love is interesting at 6'2". Like Tampa's an elite pass funnel. Sorry. Vita Vea's back. Secondary's terrible. We already like Jaden Reed. If Wicks were to sit, then we're going to like Reed even more, I would imagine. I like Romeo Dobbs. He'll come in at low ownership in tournaments. I like Tucker Kraft as well. Dean, you hit on him. Yeah, so I like those are like the three guys that I would consider for like 3 max cash games. And then as you branch out, I like that Houston Tennessee game. Whether it's what's his name there, the 4K quarterback,
Case Keenum.
Don't
Case
act
Keenum,
like you
yeah.
don't know, Bobby. You're playing a bunch of them today.
Yeah, I'm
Are you
probably
playing a lot of Case Keenum?
at 4K. Yeah, I'm probably going to have some Case Keenum in 150 for sure.
What is
Why, is that a
and like
bad take?
there's no way of knowing this, but like how fragile is his spot? Like, is there a chance he gets the hook and Nick Davis Mills comes in the second half? He's not effective. Are you concerned about that, or it's like you're just going to lose and that's that?
I'm just going to lose at that point. I'm not playing a ton of him, but in 150, I'll have. I bet it won't be that difficult to get over the field on him. Tennessee is like the worst secondary for the last decade in the NFL. Their secondary is horrendous. So I have no issue playing Case, getting to Schultz.
Do you like Brown or Woods? Like it's like there's Mechie. I've heard Mechie thrown out this week. Of course, they're without Tank Dell is gone. Collins is gone. Is Schultz their number one de facto receiver, the tight end? I suppose maybe it's Noah Brown. Woods, certainly in the back nine of his NFL career. I don't know who Xavier Hutchinson is, but that's a person who allegedly might be running some routes today. Yeah, your favorite targets for Houston. You can get yourself a really, really cheap stack, obviously. Would you run doubles with Keenan or just singles?
Just singles. I don't think you have to double him at all. I do think that I would prefer Noah Brown. My favorite would be Schultz, then Noah Brown, then probably Mechie. Mechie snaps came up last week pretty significantly, basically because they have no one else. Yeah, so that's how I would approach it in larger field stuff. I wouldn't be playing Mechie in like single entry or 3 max.
Yeah.
I do think you can play Schultz or Noah Brown. I would prefer Schultz, obviously, but yeah, it's an interesting situation. I usually attack Tennessee's secondary. And then on the other side, like I like Derrick Henry. I think he allows you to get different. He's coming in way too low owned for what he can potentially do in this game. So yeah, everyone says he's Derrick Henry. He's old, long in the tooth, whatever. I think you just play him in tournaments. I think he's a really strong play. So yeah, I think people are going to try to make Tajay Sharp work. The game script really favors Henry, right? So
yeah,
I wouldn't overthink it. And that's what we're talking about at the running back position. I think that's a really interesting way to get different based on Henry's price and like how all of this chalk is just condensing around 3 guys. And yeah, they're in fantastic matchups, but GPPs, you want to be able to find little edges. And I think that if Tennessee's winning this game, Henry's going to have a lot to do with it. So he's someone I really like in tournaments. Yeah, that's my thought process there, Dean.
I do want to jump back and get Tim's take as far as quarterbacks. Just kind of your point at running back. We kind of talk about it as far as cash stuff. We're like, yeah, you want to get 3 of Kyren Williams, Antonio Gibson, CMC, and Elliott. And ownership-wise, 36% for Kyren, 32% for Gibson. This is DK. 29% for CMC, 24% for Zeke. And then there's a break, 15% for Rachaad White, who just kind of gets more ignored than he should be because his role is amazing. And then there's Pollard at 11, Bijan at 10. Aaron Jones back this week, Dylan gone. I'm a little bit hesitant on Jones. I don't really trust they're going to give him a full throttle, but we'll see. I want your take here, Tim, when it comes to quarterbacks. And, you mentioned you want Stafford in cash. Is that who you want in your tournaments? A heavily owned Stafford. if not that, and you're only running out a couple lineups, I imagine, for your single entry, 3-entry max stuff. Are you sticking with Stafford, or are you going to go off the board a little bit?
Well, Bobby actually went right to the next guy that I liked, which is Jordan Love. I love that game as a game stack. You go Love, Reed, Kraft, and then you run it back with like Rashad White or Mike Evans. White, I think, is getting way lower ownership than he should. He's going to touch the ball. He's going to get like 25 touches. This is a really good spot for him. We have him projected as our RB4. 15% ownership, huge discount on ownership off of some of the guys that we've already mentioned. So I really like that game stack. It actually has a total like over 42 points, which on this slate is somewhat respectable. So that was the very first spot that I was going to go to, was that Green Bay Tampa game. And it's, it's just that's probably like my second favorite overall game. I don't mind Bobby's take on Case Keenum. I just don't like his weapons. Like if he had the normal weapons that the Texans were rolling out earlier in the year, I probably would be playing Case a lot more, maybe even in cash. But he just has nobody to throw to. I do like that Bobby mentioned Schultz, though. I think that would be a very strong GPP play. But I don't really like this spot for Houston. Just because he has no wide receivers. So I don't know what to do with that. I agree that the price is very, very appealing. But I just don't like the weapons. So I'm focusing heavily on that Tampa Bay Green Bay game as a different piece. I wonder, do we know if Achane is active or not yet?
No, Hill and Achane are both officially questionable. We'll know at 11:30, but as far as I can tell, I've not seen any reports one way or the other. But and the other thing is, again, like the line is terrible. The Jets have a really solid line. If you're going to put hand in the dirt, I don't mean to step on Bobby's toes or Bobby's hand, I guess.
Why do you got to do that, Dean? Why do you got to do that?
And it's Achane too. I mean, I don't think it's a good matchup for Achane. But I mean, if Hill is out, they'd probably try to scheme stuff for him.
Well, see, I was looking at it more from the Mostert angle.
Yeah.
That's more of what I was looking at. Just because like if Achane's limited, I agree with you. Like the O-line D-line matchup is pretty horrible for Miami, but still, if you have no Achane and you have like a limited Tyreek, you still have to, there still have to be people out there getting usage, and I would assume that would be Mostert. So I think he's an interesting play at, he's currently 3%. Say Achane, is ruled out. That might go up a little bit, but we still have tons of condensed chalk at running back. So I don't think he's going to get pushed up that much in terms of ownership.
The Dolphins have been kind of a cheat code all season long. Like when in doubt, just play Dolphins, and it's probably going to work out for you. But yeah, this is the one spot. And like the field, I think, is reflecting that they're not playing him. And Bobby, maybe we should just be over. Like, I don't care who they're playing against. It's the Dolphins. I trust McDaniel to figure it out. And maybe it's a good thing if we lose Achane, if we lose Hill, and all of a sudden stuff will be condensed. Jeff Wilson might get some run at 4-3 if you want to be ambitious in large field stuff. But yeah, how are you handling that? And obviously, we're still up in the air. We don't know about Hill. We don't know about Achane, but is that something we might do? It's not hard to get over the field on Dolphins because, again, they're kind of ignored. Nobody's playing Tua. Like, just nobody's going to play him. Not nobody, but you know what I mean? Basically nobody. Bobby, your general approach to Miami today is what?
So, yeah, prior to this show, I was actually thinking about getting over on Tyreek and trying to get away from CMC, paying the extra $600. CMC were to bust, just in like the millie, just trying to think of ways to basically galaxy brain myself to a win in the millie. The wind gusts worry me. Roth has up to 30 miles per hour. Doesn't it say that in the write up there?
I just stepped outside. I'm about a half hour from Miami Gardens. It's fine. It's fine.
You went
It's
outside.
The gusts are the one thing I'd be worried about.
Why'd you go outside, Dean?
Literally for that reason. I'm curious how windy it is out.
All right.
Yeah, and obviously it's good. The game doesn't tip off for a couple hours as well, but and Roth, I would imagine, is going to update his article at some point. But the article does say likely dry, can't fully rule out stray shower. Winds 15 to 20 mile per hour sustained. I'd lean closer to 15, gusts pushing around 30. I went outside for a minute. I did not. I was not in the gust threshold, so I don't know how often those are hitting. But yeah, I'm sort of joking about me being outside the old boots in the ground. I wasn't wearing boots. I was wearing flip flops. Get out of town. Boots. That's outrageous. But just in principle, like Bobby, you're talking about galaxy braining. Galaxy brain is like people telling themselves these crazy stories. You're saying, play Tyreek Hill, the best wide receiver in football. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like how people use that term. It's normally like, well, this guy does this and this guy does that. Maybe the fourth string running back, and all of a sudden, he's expensive. A Sauce. What about Sauce? Just play Tyreek and hope it works out. And if it doesn't, so be it. But I think there are much worse things to do to separate yourself from the field.
That was my original way to go on the term in the Millie, was to move off McCaffrey and get up to Tyreek, because I do like a lot of these running backs. I think people just won't play him. If you played him, it's very easy to get overweight on him, and we obviously know the ceiling that he has, and it is definitely. I think Sauce is the type of guy who would really struggle with Tyreek, just because straight line speed, I think, is something he could have an issue with, depending on how banged up Tyreek is. I would just have Tyreek get over on Tyreek in your GPP player pool. I think that's probably the way to go. It doesn't have to be at the expense of McCaffrey, but I think with all these cheap running backs that we have, we talked about Kieran, we talked about Antonio Gibson, we talked about Zeke. They allow you to get up to one of these guys, and McCaffrey's going to be somewhere between 29 and 40% owned, 29 and 60% owned in some contests. You'd get Tyreek at 3% owned for 600 more.
Did we talk about Kamara?
No.
I just hate that tag on Kamara at 8,500. What are we doing there? It's a great matchup, but Taysom's back.
Yeah. I mean, he is projected as our RB3. The Blitzum has as their RB4, and he's going to be 5% owned. So I just think
last week, little flop leg.
But the Giants have given up, I think, the 6th most fantasy points to running backs. So I mean, it's an unbelievable matchup. So I don't know. I think it'd be pretty easy to at least get a little bit over the field. I think he'd be a really, really interesting play, at least for the Millie.
There's also a real chance that Olave doesn't play, and it's not the same position, but he probably gets an extra pass or two thrown his way.
Right.
We talk about the receivers for Houston, but if Olave doesn't go, Rashid Shaheed, who we did bet the over on for yards today, and the number wasn't very high, but he's coming back, and I think there's a decent. If at best for Olave, he plays and he's somewhat limited. I think, he doesn't seem to be 100%. You got Shaheed, A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden. There's a Kirkwood, so he can't be good, right? Marquez Callaway, it's not good. The Saints offense would be pretty. It's tough if they lose Olave, and if Olave plays, you can do the same sort of thought process as the Hill thing, because I think people are going to be afraid to play Olave, but I also think he's going to project well. We're not there just yet, but I'm curious. Does anybody have an Olave thought if he plays, if he's going to be available? Because math-wise, he looks good, but he seems to keep getting hurt. Derek Carr is somebody it's hard to trust. But, man, what was the number I heard? I heard Rebar say it. I think he has the 3rd most yards this year versus man coverage is Chris Olave. I might be misquoting that, but I think that's correct. In a dome versus the Giants. Bobby, do we have an official Olave take?
Not really. I struggle with Derek Carr and Olave, that pairing.
Same.
I would prefer Shaheed, I think, for the savings. Even though we're saying that Shaheed's going to be relatively chalky, I just think that he's someone I would like to get to in the spot a little bit more than Olave. And I don't think the ownership's going to come in as high on Shaheed as we all think.
It depends if Olave plays, I think, is this basically. If Olave plays, then no. And if he doesn't, people are going to play Shaheed. He's currently 5% projected.
If he plays, like, I'm going to be over on Shaheed. That would be my move. That would be my favorite Saint too, I think. Yeah, it's a tough situation with anyone basically connected to Derek Carr for me. Like, if it was Jameis, I'd definitely have interest in Olave, but I just don't like playing receivers attached to Derek Carr. And it's just tough to play Kamara too, because Taysom's there now. And I don't know, it would just be Rashid for me with the savings.
Tim, what do you got in the Saints in general?
Yeah, but I don't really have a strong take about Olave. Like, I really don't know what his true status is. I do like Shaheed quite a bit. I really do like Kamara quite a bit in this game, even with Hill back, just because of that ownership. He's getting completely squeezed out in terms of ownership. He's still projecting incredibly well, so I'm going to stand by my Kamara take.
All right, so a tweet from the Twitter, Cameron Wolf. We're expecting Tyreek Hill pregame workout testing his injured ankle within the hour to determine if he plays. I've heard early optimism from one source on Hill as he chases 2,000 yards. The Dolphins offense definitely needs him. So Cameron Wolf, boots on the ground, feeling optimistic that Hill's going to try to give it a go. He wants those 2,000 yards. I'll go ahead and drop that in chat for the people as well. Is this the time of year we start talking about that? I know, like, last week of the season, it's all about incentives and, well, this guy needs 7 catches. And we've probably all seen the clip of, like, Gronk. This is like dating, but you've probably seen this, Bobby. Gronk going up to Brady and, like, listen, I need one more catch and I get, like, $500,000. Hook that up.
This is actually a YouTube clip that I watched within the last 2 days as well. I just
That's so funny.
On YouTube way too much. Yeah,
but
it's true. There's definitely credence to it. Like, I think we would, if I was a quarterback, I'd be trying to get my guys paid too, just keep them happy, right? So
100%. I don't know.
Dean would have thrown me the ball with 1 catch. If I needed 1 catch, Dean would be looking everywhere else, messing around.
I'm going to throw it to you. I'm not sure you're going to get it. I'm not sure.
I'm definitely going to catch it. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to catch it. I just don't think I think you're going to mess around with me. And, like, I'll be wide open. You'll look at me and laugh, and then throw it to someone else.
I'll give the old Uncle Rico. It's not going to. I wouldn't really trust the accuracy per se, but yeah, this isn't something we're focused. And I wanted to talk about the MVP stuff. Like, do the 49ers run it up? Like, do they give Brock Purdy an extra touchdown or 2 if they can? Is Dak trying to score an extra touchdown? Of course, they're trying, right? Like, is that something that, like, I don't know how to quantify that, but I feel like in my head, like, San Fran, I think it'd be pretty cool to get Purdy the MVP, and especially all the chatter against him. And it's kind of neck and neck there with those two, especially if Dak beats Buffalo, or if Dallas beats Buffalo today, kind of knocking them out. One more big win. I don't know. Is this something you care about at this point in the season, Bobby? I don't know how to quantify it. It's hard to say who cares, who doesn't care, and who's thinking about it. But it's more of, again, like last week of the season, so-and-so needs 1,000, to get 1,000 yards. What even is that 1,000 yards these days in a 17-game season? But that's a whole other conversation. Is this something we care about right now, or am I just kind of manufacturing a storyline that doesn't exist?
It's more later, and it's more like last week. But yeah, I think that some of these guys are definitely looking at it like a guy like Tyreek who's chasing that 2,000. So I think there's something there, yeah, for sure.
Let's see. I see some questions getting loaded up in chat as well. I do not want to neglect those. Hey, when you guys are hanging out, do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Do all those things. Hit all the buttons that keeps the show going. We much appreciate it. About 45 minutes or so, you get the Final Takes tournament, final GPP takes. You got Rob's going to be joining us, as well as we're leaving. We'll say hello to Rob. SquirrelPatrol coming on. Mr. Richard saying, why is Demarcus Robinson showing up in lineups on DK? Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird too. We're expecting Atwell not to go as a wide receiver 3. It's a good matchup and he's cheap. I don't know what to do with that. I mean, we're supposed to throw everybody against Washington, but is Demarcus Robinson going to be like somewhat popular as one of the cheap receivers, Bobby? And is that something we're considering today?
Oh, he's currently my highest owned receiver. So
whoa,
think through that. Yeah.
Okay, I hit on something. Talk to me about Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, well, the matchup's fantastic. Atwell's out. Seeing a bunch of targets last couple games. Snap counts up. Yeah, let me pull up the Rams real quick. I just want to see what he was seeing for targets. Yeah, I don't know. Team targets, Rams. Sorry, it's taking me a little bit to pull this up. 5 and 10 the last. He went 2, 2, 5, and 10. 10 last week. Maybe I'm just getting ahead of myself in terms of playing him as high as I am.
Yeah.
He did at 5 the week prior, so I think that's interesting. Definitely playing these other Rams guys, and I like Stafford because the matchup's fantastic versus the Redskins. So I don't know. I think there's definitely pivots. Curtis Samuel in that same game, I think is very interesting. He'd probably be my favorite Washington receiver by a long shot, followed by Logan Thomas at the tight end position. Demario Douglas was someone at 3-7. Pop, yeah. He would be the only Patriots receiver I'd probably have interest in other than Hunter Henry, who I guess is a tight end. So, yeah, I think all those – there's a couple – yeah. I'm trying to think. Who else do I have as a cheap receiver? I was looking at it a second ago, and then right before you asked me the question, I clicked out. That would kind of be it, like Rashid Shaheed. You can throw Dotson's the lowest. Dotson's the least exposure I have of guys under 5K.
What about Wandale, Bobby? Thoughts on him?
Yeah,
I just completely X'd Wandale. Maybe that's
You
a bad
did.
take.
No,
Yeah.
I actually kind of think that's the right thing to do, especially in the contests that you play. I would X him out. Yeah.
I'm not playing Wandale in ownership. I'd rather just play if I want to get exposure to that game, which I do. It would be Saquon or Waller. I think those
Do
are
you
the
think
guys. I don't
the
think you play
ownership's wrong?
20% Wandale.
We're currently
What'd you
projecting Wandale for 5%. I know he was more popular early in the week. I'm not sure what has changed. Do you think that's wrong at 5%? Do you think it's going to be higher than that? I thought it would be higher. I was kind of surprised to see that number.
It might be higher, but even if it's lower at it, what's Wandale's ADOT at this point? Like, it's not. They are in a dome though, so I guess that gives credence to Wandale if he comes in lower owned. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was surprised at how high DeMarcus is and how low Wandale is. I thought they would be a little bit closer together. That's just what I was thinking. But either way, I'd much rather play DeMarcus than Wandale.
Second fastest game projected according to the Blitz. That's the Giants and the Saints, also in a dome. So pace and environment's good. As far as the actual athletic ability and the players, whatever. You can't have everything, I suppose. But I did think Wandale is going to be a little bit more popular. Maybe this stuff changes. This is a ownership from 9:00 in the morning. We still have, they still have 4 hours to figure it out and to get, refine it. So don't assume that is 100% accurate. Jaden Reed's probably the most popular receiver just on the board in general. On DK, the price just seems too cheap. He had that Monday night game where he shined, and the price obviously is already set, so it does not adjust. 4.9 at the pass funnel of Tampa looks so good. You mentioned, was it Tim? Rice is the next guy at 20%. I think you were poo-pooing Rice. I can't remember if that was on air or off air. We were having a conversation about it, and then talk about that as far as are you in on Reed? Are you out on Rice? And just receivers in general?
I'm in on Reed, out on Rice. That's a good way of putting it. This is a different situation. This is in New England. Last week it was in KC. He was cheaper last week. Now his price is up over 6K. I'm not a fan of his going into this much ownership in New England. Like, I know New England's not a good team, but they're a pretty decent defense. I don't really like playing Rice even in cash games. So I'm not playing Rice in cash games or single entry. I'm definitely much higher on Jalen Reed.
6 hours ago, Rappaport tweeted, Chris Olave considered game time decision, source said, but there is not a lot of optimism that he can go. He may work out pregame. So that's the tweet I saw earlier that suggested to me that he probably doesn't play, but it is Rappaport. We'll see. Stay tuned. Chris Godwin expected to give it a go today, but even when he gives it a go, he's had games where Evans has separated himself so much from Godwin. And that's like the beautiful thing about Tampa is so like just get White and Evans, and it's just like, okay, that's the entire offense. Those two guys get everything. Let's see. Some more questions are popping up in chat. Malik Heath is a name I heard throw out. Is that too ambitious? That seems like a Bobby question. For the Packers as their third or fourth receiver. I know Wicks was banged up last week. I think he's expected to go, but is that how ambitious are we being with that? How much of a galaxy brain play is Malik Heath at 3K Stone Min? Is he on your board? Is he in the pool for you there, Bobby?
If Wicks sits, I'll definitely have Heath in my pool. I think it's more of a larger field type of situation, but I would bump Jaden Reed for sure, and guys like Heath and Romeo Dobbs. These Packers are just in a phenomenal matchup versus Tampa. So I guess if you wanted to play him, it's just the snap count with Wicks in isn't going to be the greatest. If he's out, it'd probably bump up a little bit to where it's a little bit more viable at 3K. I know it's a Stone Man, but I don't know. With Wicks in, I probably wouldn't play him. Wicks out, I'd play him.
Tim, JC wants to know if anybody's playing Tua today. Tua with the weather. I don't even know if it's necessarily the weather the reason why people aren't playing him. People aren't playing him, for the record. I'm pulling up the precise ownership, and he is getting, let's see, as our
Did you see the Scheffner tweet about Olave, Dean, 17 minutes ago?
Are they? Okay. Is it in conflict to Rappaport?
It's pretty much the same, but it basically says one source said there's doubt that the standout wide receiver plays today versus the Giants. So, okay. Dean, you should give out to the people your prop.
Yeah, I just hate to give out some losers, but I'll tell the people what I hit earlier before the show.
All right. Yeah.
Did you tail? Did you mush it?
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. So I got it on the Hard Rock, and I was looking around on scores and odds, and basically this is what it was everywhere. I don't know if it's changed or not, but 34.5 receiving yards for Shaheed. I hit the over minus 115. I hit the alt over 50 yards at plus 160. And just for funsies, 100 yards, 10-1. You never know.
So it's still 34.5 on DK. It's now minus 120. I got it at minus 115. So it's basically still the same, just a little bit more expensive.
Bobby, you like this? You like this bet? You want to make it a people's bet?
Let's make it the people's bet. I'm just texting my group chat right now to tell them to bet it.
You got a secret chat too? Unbelievable.
Just my friends from home, not an actual secret chat of DFS guys.
I got you.
You guys are my secret chat, I guess.
Well, it's not so secretive now. Tua's getting like 1 to 2% ownership. JC was asking about Tua here, Tim, and he was saying because of the weather. And I don't think that's the main reason. It's not necessarily a positive, but I think the main reason is like, well, some banged up parts around him, fully banged up offensive line. He's not cheap. Yeah, I don't think I'm getting the Tua. And again, I might play some Miami parts. I don't think I'm just gonna like build around Tua. What are your thoughts as far as Tua and just Miami in general here, Tim?
Honestly, I don't make 150 teams, but I can't imagine I'd have more than like, I don't know, 2 or 3. If I did, I'd probably just X them out. 7.9K against the Jets. Jets are a really strong defense. So I think that'd be a pretty easy pass for me.
All right. Lewis is asking about ownership for Thomas on FanDuel. Is that Logan Thomas? I don't know about Lewis. 3-4% is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he wanted to know Schultz's ownership, which is like 2.5%.
Yeah. If you like them, play them. They're not going to get, there's no reason be like, well, I like that person, but ownership. They're not going to get played. By all means, just play those guys if you want to play them. I see some other questions here popping up in chat. Somebody was asking about Zeke. Zeke is terrible. Zeke stinks. It's 2023. We're playing Zeke. But he's been pretty good. And it's basically all his backfield, right? The absence of Ramondre. Bobby, what are you doing with Zeke? Because, before the season started, you're kidding me. I'm not playing Zeke at any points. But now maybe because he's cheap enough and the opportunity is good enough, and that's that. What's your approach to Zeke today, Bobby?
Have a good bit of him currently. I will say this though. Like it's either him or McCaffrey on the fade for me. In larger field tournaments or to come under on. I like Gibson, who's right there, but he's getting ownership too. Chuba Hubbard's in his price range. Rain in that game. Rain tends to benefit the running backs. He's 5'6", and he's splitting Gibson and Ezekiel Elliott. He's terrible, but it's just a GPP leverage play. Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I'm currently playing him. I think the guy I'm going to try to get away from a little bit more, come under on, is CMC, which is like famous last words immediately.
Are you playing more receivers for San Fran? Are you going that route, playing some Kittle, playing some Devo, or you're just like hoping San Fran like nobody smashes and everybody just kind of does like at best, fine? What's the strategy there? Because it feels like they're going to score a good bit.
Yeah, I'll be playing IU, Devo, Kittle, good Brock Purdy stacks. Yeah, obviously their team total is very high, so I probably want at least one if I'm making that rule to get under on McCaffrey on every team. That's something I should probably think through.
Do you have any Chris Rodriguez, Bobby?
No, he hit. So like when I usually run like all the industry projections, he was hitting like my average for some reason. What's his price?
4.5.
He like was the last guy in my exposures at running back before I started altering stuff last night. Then I just X'd him. Should I be thinking more about him? Like,
I mean, there was some coach talk, I guess like organization talk about him, like using him. I don't know if that means anything. I just thought he'd be interesting leverage off of Gibson, but that it could be too thin.
Where does he grade out in the coach speak index? Where does Washington grade out in the coach speak index?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not so sure.
You'll pull it up.
So sure.
Dean got us. This is Dean. Dean is Twitter, so he can figure it out.
I mean, I'm trying to find something on it. Like, it's a great Twitter account. If you guys are not aware, Coach Speak Index, basically talking about which coaches are more often than not lie to you, based upon specific scenarios as well. Is there an actual site too? I think there is. So they have like an actual site where you can pull up, because I see like they have a Twitter account, but is there an actual site where I can say, give me Washington? Or do I have to find like a Washington-based tweet? Is my question. They should have one. And I don't think they actually have a website, so I don't see that. I just see Dan Campbell right now. And that's not really helpful. And because I guess that's because he must have said something in regard to the game yesterday. Sean Payton, by the way, kicking a field goal from the one, down 3 touchdowns. It might be in the fourth quarter. It might be the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, look, I don't pretend to know more about football than Sean Payton. Like, he knows a ton more. But I know more about math than he does. I couldn't.
Why didn't he challenge one of the touchdowns? He didn't.
They scored like 3 times.
Yeah, they did score. They could have made an argument for the score like every single time.
And then he just started yelling at Russ for some reason. I don't know. And those two are married to each other over the next like 4 years. So enjoy it, Denver. You still had Peyton Manning. It was a good run. But, the future is not bright for Denver, unfortunately. Bobby, do we officially get your quarterback pool? I know you normally kind of thin it out. Obviously, you reserve the right to change your mind. But what are we looking at? 4 or 5 guys?
Yeah, 4 or 5 guys. It's going to be Stafford, Purdy, Love, Keenum, and Levis, I think, for right now.
Mr. Richard, this is for you, Bobby, specifically, that they know how you specialize in defense, how you put your hand in the dirt. Mr. Richard wants to know how you feel about the Giants defensively for tournaments today.
Yeah, I think I'm playing some Saquon, so I'll have them just to correlate. Also, Derek Carr stinks, right? So, yeah, I just want to check their tag quick. 2.7. Yeah, I think it's not a bad price for at New Orleans too. Yeah, I like the Giants.
It's a pivot away from the Jets. If the Jets get some ownership, exactly. Don't hate that at all. I love this because we know Broccoli Boy is Tim's boy, right? And Broccoli Boy specifically,
which we didn't know for like the first 5 weeks of the show. He was just in there chirping us and not chirping Tim.
No, he's besmirching Tim without actually besmirching him. He's asking you the question. Like, he knows Tim. He probably could text him if he wanted to. And he's like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to ask Bobby, which is kind of slander to Tim. Just going to say. But he wants your opinion specifically here, Bobby. McBride or Taysom? Choose my destiny, he says. Yeah, Taysom is back this week. It feels a lot more volatile than McBride does. McBride's a good, obviously a very clear run back if you want to run something back with Sam Fran. Who do you prefer amongst those two tight ends?
It would be McBride. Pretty much getting wide receiver volume. So at 5K, we look at it as priced up at the tight end position. But if he was a wide receiver, it would be a cheaper tag and something we'd be targeting. So yeah, I like McBride.
I love that Brocco Boy is now asking about, he wants me to choose his pasta, which, by the way, I'm the third person to ask to choose. You guys are both like pasta connoisseurs. You know, I'm not anti-pasta. That wasn't a joke. I'm just, but like, I'm not the guy to go to, but he wants to know rotini or penne. And rotini's got the spirals. Is that right? Penne's penne's
you got to go.
That's the chalk.
You got to go penne. You got to go penne.
Yeah. Rotini's the spirals. Fade the spirals. You got a hot take when it comes to pasta, Tim? I think this is both your wheelhouses, right? You guys are both
Pepperdelli. Pepperdelli is my favorite. Pepperdelli bolognese is my favorite.
What's Pepperdelli? Should I know what Pepperdelli is?
It's like a thick noodle.
Bobby, you know what Pepperdelli is? Is that two different words or one word?
Yeah, I know what it is. Mine would be fusilli.
It's one word.
Huh.
Mine would be fusilli, I think. Long fusilli.
What is yours?
It's like long spirals.
What does it say? One more time, if you don't mind.
Fusilli. Long fusilli.
Okay. Yeah. We're learning a lot. Give it. What's your boldest fade when it comes to pasta, Bobby?
Maybe penne.
Ooh.
Oh, come on. That's
a good chalk. That's good chalk.
That's good chalk.
I don't know. Actually, lasagna. I'm not a lasagna guy. I hate lasagna. What's that type? The sheet pasta or whatever. Like that.
People put the ricotta in lasagna. Like, come on, what are we doing? You want to just ruin the lasagna?
Yeah.
So gross.
Lasagna. That's standard, right? Amazing.
Is ricotta standard in lasagna? I believe it is. Is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes.
86 to the ricotta, and then we can talk. All right. Now we've derailed the chat fully. Hey, we haven't talked about the Chiefs. Several people are talking about the Chiefs there in chat. Should we be talking about them in the matchup here against New England? New England's not a lot of fun as far as runbacks. If you care for runbacks here, Tim, 14.5 total for the Patriots. I know we talk about Pop Douglas maybe as a cheap runback. We talk about Zeke as well, mostly because they're cheap and they'll have opportunity. We talk about Rice in passing. I guess you're not in on Rice. You said earlier you're out on Rice. If you're out on Rice, who are you in on? Probably nobody, because that leaves like MVS and Tony and Watson and Moore and James. Kelsey's great, but he's expensive. Are you just out in the Chiefs today? What are you doing with Kansas City?
I pretty much am. I really am. I'm not high on the Chiefs really at all. So I think this is. I'm sure they're going to win the game, but I don't think this is going to be some kind of like ultra shootout, and they're going to put up a ton of points. They have an implied total of what, 23, which I guess is not horrible on the slate. I don't think this is a good ceiling spot for Mahomes, Kelsey, Rice, or any of the guys in the backfield. So it's just I really don't have much interest in the Chiefs.
The chat is now reminding me of the Fusilli Jerry episode from Seinfeld. Yes, I do remember that. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And speaking of our pronunciations, feel free to correct me, folks. Am I saying ricotta wrong? I know I have an Italian friend of mine who would say rigut, but I think that's just, I don't know if that's like, is that what like the real Italians say? Or is that he would intentionally butcher it, but he would call it rigut? Have you heard that term before? For ricotta?
I just call it ricotta.
Yeah, it's ricotta.
Have you heard rigut before?
No.
So I've been saying it right, according to you guys, is what I'm asking.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Apparently I've been told. Yeah, according to Joseph, I was saying it wrong, and I think Joseph agrees with rigut. I'm shocked you guys have neither heard that. And, neither one of you guys have heard that before in passing. But all right, what would Tom?
Is that like prosciutto? Like people say prosciutto, which is like not. It's prosciutto.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm not the person to ask. I just sort of hear people talk about it. But Joseph says he's pretty Italian. I don't either Italian or not, but he's very Italian. So maybe he takes precedent over you guys. I don't know when it comes to the pronunciation, but I can't speak to that at all. Let's see. I'm derailing the show. Well, what is your take here, Bobby, when it comes to the Chiefs? They're kind of going to be ignored. Kelsey's going to be, I think, mostly ignored, as far as I can tell.
I do think the guy that scores the touchdown, everyone's going to play Shaheed. I mean, everyone's going to play Rice. I have Rasheed Rice too. But the guy who's going to go overlooked, everyone's going to expect me to say Kelsey. I think Justin Watson is going to catch a bomb in this game.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think
is that a hand in the dirt take or is that a gut take?
I've watched the Patriots for like the last 20 years, Dean, and they're going to take away like your best weapon, and then someone gets the overflow of usage when they take that guy away, and he would be the only him or McKinnon, and I don't know. I feel like Watson's the guy that I could see it today having a good game at his tag and no one playing him at all.
I was just gonna say if there was one Chief that I would play, it would be McKinnon, just because his price on FanDuel and DK is quite nice, 5-1 and 5-5.
You like McKinnon more
versus
than
guys like McKinnon too. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we just stepped on you. But Tim, you mentioned McKinnon. You like McKinnon more than CEH if you're going to pick one of those two?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I don't have a take on that. But you talk about, people say it all the time, Bobby, when it comes to Belichick has the ability to take away, they try to scheme and take away the other team's best player. Is that real or is that just something people say? You can't just push a button and say, like, yeah, we're not going to let Tyreek catch a ball today. And like, that doesn't work that way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But has anybody actually ran the numbers? Is this actually true or is this something that like we've all repeated for 20 years?
I think it's true, but then it's to the point where another guy just goes off in his place. Like, I could see McKinnon having a good game because they're just focusing in on Kelsey or Rasheed Rice. Like I said, I think Watson could be another beneficiary of them, what they do schematically versus number one receivers, or Kelsey, obviously in that scenario, I would call a pass catcher. So yeah, I don't know. For me, like, there's going to be two guys outside of Kelsey that will have somewhat of upside. I think it would be Watson or McKinnon. I don't know. I currently have Rice in, but Tim made a good point for me to kind of circle the wagon on Rice. I think maybe Rice at 6-1 isn't the play, and I should be looking at other guys, but currently I have him.
He's going to be very
popular. I don't have a
conviction
around this KC situation at all for me, to be perfectly honest.
What's your favorite 1:00 game, Bobby? Is it the Green Bay Tampa Bay game? If you're going to pick one of these 7 that looks most appealing?
It's the Green Bay Tampa Bay game, but I also think that the Jets Dolphins game is very interesting for tournaments. I think you can make a case for Houston Tennessee as well, but for me, for like stacking, it would be Green Bay Tampa Bay. I'm gonna have a lot of Jordan Love in these Packers receivers. I think you're gonna run back either Rashid White or Mike Evans as well.
What about Dobbs, by the way? Because everybody's talking about playing the other receiver is popping a ton with the Reed. Dobbs is a little bit more expensive, and if you want to play the ownership game, is it 30% versus 4%? That seems like an awesome pivot. Is that something you've considered?
Yeah, I'm over on Dobbs. I'm definitely over on Jaden Reed too. I think Dobbs is a very strong play. Have some best ball shares that I need to get home too with Dobbs. So,
here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
If you had 1039 on the East Coast for Bobby mentioning, collect your winnings, the Scream Bingo, you cash your tickets. I had
13% of Dobbs.
That's in best ball or that's in your current lineups for today?
That's in my current lineups, but I definitely have them in best ball too.
I didn't get many teams through. I didn't play nearly as many best ball teams as you guys did, or at least Bobby did. But my one team that got through does have Higgins and Chandler. So we might be going to Sizzler. We'll see. Stay tuned. And you know who else is on that team, Bobby? Achan and Hill. So hopefully those guys playing.
There we go. This is the thing. Like, everyone's worried about the advance rates into the playoffs. The advance rates out of the first round are what's important, or the advance rates out of the second round. If you whatever you get in, you get in. Like,
quantity versus quality.
What?
Quantity versus quality.
Exactly. Yeah. So
we haven't talked a lot about Buffalo and Dallas.
That's the game. That's the game we need to talk about. Yeah.
So the tricky part is, Tim, is that the pieces you want to play are pretty expensive. We do wait for it. Live in the world with salary cap. You had 1040 for that. Cash your ticket also. But I want to get over the field on Josh Allen. I love when Josh Allen just says, like, screw it, I'm going to take this game over. I think it's not completely insane to play him naked just because his rushing ability has vaulted of late. He can run in 2 touchdowns. Diggs is just overpriced. He just is. I'm not saying you can't play him, but he's flat out overpriced. I do not know why his price has not come down. 3 of his last 4 weeks, he's in the single digits, I believe. Gabe Davis is boom bust. I don't mind him for tournaments. I wish Kincaid was a little bit cheaper as well with Knox coming back, but certainly in play. I think you can also pair Allen and James Cook is something I'm considering doing as well, and just theoretically getting all the touchdowns until Latavius Murray runs 2 in. But, and then the other side, of course, Lamb is spectacular, but he's expensive. I like Ferguson, too, at tight end. But, Tim, how are you handling Dallas-Buffalo? This game looks like a lot of fun on paper. A desperate Buffalo team needs the W. There is some weather lurking there, but I don't think it's that crazy, especially considering it's Buffalo in December. Yeah, it's yellow, according to Roth. So I'll drop this in chat for those arriving late. Give me your thoughts as far as Dallas and Buffalo.
I like that game quite a bit, and it basically forces you into a completely different lineup construction because you can't play C-Mac. You probably can't play Kyron. You really have to like punt running back because you want CD in this stack. CD at 9,200 is still showing up as a positive RG value. I mean, that's how good this guy is. So I have absolutely no issue like going like Allen, CD, maybe Dalton Kincaid. Like you said, you could go Allen naked. There are. I think Pollard is pretty interesting. Also, maybe fade CD and play Pollard. This is a game that I would really like to build into. It's just very, very hard, but it's going to be hard for the entire field. And I think this is going to be like the highest scoring game on the slate, and people aren't going to play it. So if you try, just try to make it work somehow in some of your builds, because it is possible you might have to play like, the Patriots defense or something like that. You might have to get uncomfortable in some of your clicks, but these guys have such high ceilings that I think it's important to get into this game if you're making multiple teams.
Bobby, Dallas, Buffalo.
Yeah, Noto had the take on the show like you had. Just play Allen naked, run it back with CD. We've seen naked QBs win the Millie a couple times this year, so I think it's definitely viable. You have to think about how to really build into this game. Tim said getting down to New England. Stephon Diggs, I think he's better versus man than zone. I think Dallas plays more man. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to pull it up now. Trying to get my hand in the dirt. No one's going to play Stephon Diggs because he's 9-1 and just below McCaffrey. And he's been pretty bad, but I don't know if it's a good spot in terms of coverage. I don't know. I can consider boosting him. That would be pretty much. I think the James Cook call is good. Like, I don't know why they went away from James Cook last week. He was one of my calls. I thought he was good to leverage off the chalk at 6K or whatever. And then he had like 24 points in the first half, and then they just completely went away from him because I don't think you can trust what they're really doing in Buffalo. That's the main issue. Like, I don't even think they know what they're doing. Like, wasn't Kincaid like a non-factor last week pretty much? Like, they just went away from their best receiver over the last couple of weeks. So, I don't know.
Knox came back. He did have 8 targets last week for what it's worth.
Oh, did he? What was his line?
They were short targets, though, like 5 catches, 8 targets, 21 yards. So, I don't know what his A-dot was, but I'm telling you, it doesn't seem like he was running down the field. I don't know if that was directly an effect because of Knox is back or not. They're running 3 receivers, 2 tight ends. I'm not really sure what the strategy was there. My hand was not in the dirt, but ideally you want to have a bigger upside for Kincaid, and I wouldn't say you cross him out, but that is, I guess, interesting to note. And like you said, he's first rounder, second rounder. He looks legit and basically plays receiver anyway. But Knox probably is not helping him, I guess, is the short part of it. But I don't know if he hurts him enough where you can't play him. Tim, do you have a thought there as far as the tight ends for Buffalo?
I mean, I would obviously prefer to get to Kincaid, especially if he's going to be, 1% owned. I know that Knox is back. Did we even talk about Ferguson, who's even cheaper?
I mentioned him in passing, and I think he's really
he's he's a fantastic play. 5% ownership. I absolutely love Jake Ferguson today. I think he's even a cash game play, to be honest with you. If you're, can't quite get to like McBride, you could play Ferguson.
Speaking of cash, I saw a cash question in chat for Tim. Doug is asking, and feel free to fire up some questions about 10, 15 minutes till we get Squirrel Patrol and Robin here. Stafford or Purdy for cash? I think they're both really good choices. And as far as I'm concerned, it's probably more like what you're doing with that money. But if you're pinching pennies, Stafford's like the default cash guy. If money is not a thing, then maybe Purdy. But what are you doing with that extra cash? Your thoughts as far as Purdy versus Stafford in cash?
I think it's Stafford.
Are we playing Aaron Jones his first game back? I don't think I am.
No.
I know Dylan's gone, but yeah. Bobby,
I'm not convinced Aaron Jones is fully healthy either. I don't know what's going to happen with that running situation.
Was it a thumb? Is that what it was? I think
that was for Dylan. Dylan had a thumb.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know what Jones had.
Vita Vea is in, so that's a complete X for Green Bay running backs for me.
You guys are so afraid of Vita Vea. Let's see. Joseph wants to know about thoughts about Waddle. You've talked about Tyreek. That's a tricky one. If he's significantly cheaper, if you're playing Waddle, Bobby, do you want Tyreek out there, or at least Tyreek out there as the version guy, the takeaway sauce? It's an interesting thing. He probably gets more balls thrown his way, but maybe tighter coverage, maybe less efficiency if Tyreek doesn't go. And it looks like Tyreek's going to go, at least speculation, boots in the ground. We'll see. 11:30, you get the official note, actives and inactives. But I've not really put a heck of a lot of thought into Waddle. I'm having a hard time getting there. I'm having a hard time selling myself on Hill. I understand why I want to play him, but what do you got as far as Waddle, Bobby?
Yeah, I had this discussion with my buddy for a season long. I have Tyreek, he has Waddle. We're playing each other. And I was basically like, you want Tyreek in because Sauce is going to get Tyreek in that situation, and Waddle's matchup is significantly better. I'm not playing much Waddle currently, but I guess you can play him because it is a better matchup. I like Garrett Wilson in that game at 5'8". He's the first read every time for Zach Wilson. So he would be my favorite receiver outside of Tyreek. And in that game, I think he's more viable for Tyreek than Tyreek in terms of a point per dollar situation because he's 5'8", obviously, and Tyreek's 9'6" in cash. And you can consider Wilson for cash.
We haven't really had this conversation yet. Cup or Puka? DK single entry. Alan wants to know, Tim. Man, both those guys look spectacular. I assume they're healthy enough to go. We've seen them kind of both banged up to various degrees this season. But if they stay healthy, if they play 4 quarters, both are well positioned to smash against this terrible Washington defense, Washington secondary. Do you have a preference amongst the two? I like them both, and I think it's whichever one fits, but that's sort of a cop-out. Do you have a lean?
What was it, Puka and who?
Cup, 1 and 1A for the Rams as far as the receivers.
Yeah, I mean that is so tough to really decide. It's if you have the extra 500, I certainly wouldn't fault you to go Cup, but I don't think you have to force in Cup and spend that extra $500. So if you have it, go Cup.
Bobby, do you have a hand in the dirt take on that? Or it's just get shares of both, and I don't know which one's better?
I have like the same amount of exposure of both of them. So yeah, I like both. I think they're both super strong players.
Their projection is very similar, and their projected ownership. Puka's only very, very slightly projected for a little bit more ownership.
Let's see. More questions kind of loading up here. Pranav is asking about McLaurin, Scary Terry, a run back against the Rams. I think, Bobby, you were talking about the possibility of Curtis Samuel. He's cheaper. McLaurin's 5'6", Samuel's 4'6". How do you feel about Terry? I assume as a run back with Ram stuff.
Curtis is probably my favorite, then McLaurin, then Dotson. Logan Thomas. That's from the receivers. I would put Logan Thomas ahead of McLaurin and Dotson as well for Washington pass catchers. I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I'm not getting a ton of Dotson and McLaurin. I know a lot of people are playing Howell today. I won't be playing a lot of Howell. If I did play Howell, I think Gibson's an interesting. I would prefer going to like a guy like Gibson to differentiate his chalk rather than play McLaurin or Dotson. And then, like I said, Curtis Samuel or Thomas like that. If I was three-manning them, I probably wouldn't play any of McLaurin or Dotson.
We got several people in the chat talking about, like, what is this nonsense with Demarcus Robinson getting 15% ownership? Jeffrey's asking about him. Cam is saying, why Demarcus Robinson? He says, talk about a stiff. A bigger stiff is whoever's going to be lining up across for him. He should be the wide receiver 3 for the Rams because we're expecting Tutu Atwell to not play. He seems highly unlikely to go. I'm not sure if he's officially been ruled out or not. I know you talked about this earlier in the show, Bobby, but I think you said Demarcus Robinson was one of your most popular receivers, if not your most popular receiver. Yep. Yeah. Why are you playing that stiff?
Because the projections say to, which is probably a reason to get off. But I currently have him 10 targets last week, 5 targets the week before, Tutu's out. So yeah, 3-6 just makes stuff work. I think you could play Pop Douglas in place of him. You could play Rashid Shaheed for 4-3. Like there's definitely pivots. Dontavian Wicks if he plays. These are all guys that I think are very much in play. As pivots, you can use Wandale. I don't love Wandale. I do have to rethink it though because it seems like he's not going to be chalk now. So I just hate playing Wandale Robinson. Maybe I should be under on DeMarcus, not under on DeMarcus, but maybe I should be thinking about how much I have of him currently because I'm pretty overweight currently to DeMarcus. I can split it up between 2 or 3 guys.
Ronald's saying that DeMarcus is only something because of Higbee's injury. Wasn't the backup tight end Allen getting a couple balls thrown his way? I don't know if we're expecting Higbee back. So I guess maybe Robinson would be like the 4th receiver by default. I'm not sure if Higbee's ahead of him or not, if you want to do the math that way. But I don't know. Is that something that checks out, Bobby? That Higbee
I thought Higbee
led to more balls?
I thought Higbee was back.
Yeah. I'm saying, did Robinson benefit from Higbee being out? I know they were throwing to this Davis Allen person.
They were still throwing to Davis Allen. I was wondering if Higbee was out, I would have liked Davis Allen. I think Davis Allen is still somewhat in play in large field stuff because Higbee's kind of dusty at this point, I feel like. And Allen looked good last week for what it's worth.
Donnie's asking about Spears and large field stuff against this Houston run defense. Tim, I like to play Spears. If I'm going to play him, I want to play him in a spot where against Miami, right? I did play him last time against Miami when they're projected to be down pretty big. They're actually favorites. So, you don't really know how this is going to go. But, when Henry is more than pretty much anybody else in the league is dependent upon what the scoreboard says. If they're ahead, he's a smash. If they're behind, he might be in trouble. Is Spears somebody you're looking at here as a favorite versus Houston? For me, not so much. No. But yeah.
This is a Derrick Henry game, if anything, out of that backfield. You want to play Spears when they're playing from behind, and they really shouldn't be doing that in this matchup.
Pranav is asking, please give the best value play of the slate. Who is the best value play of the slate, Tim? I'll let you go first. Actually, I'll give you a second. I think the answer might be Jaden Reed. Is that the answer?
Yeah. That's what I was
4-9 on TK. I was going to say possibly Zeke. Maybe Zeke.
Nah, I don't know.
Maybe
I want to say. I mean, he certainly could be. He certainly
Gibson?
could be.
Antonio Gibson. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I feel way more comfortable with Jaden Reed.
Yeah,
I think Jaden Reed has an incredibly solid floor, and I think he has an amazing ceiling too. So Jaden Reed is like, I think you could play him in all formats.
Maybe the answer is Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. We see Eric in chat pumping him up a bunch. Are you on board here, Bobby, for Tommy DeVito? Do you want to tell us your favorite value play? I guess you said several times you like Robinson a good bit. Who's your favorite value play? You have a Tommy Cutlets take.
The safest value play, I would say, is Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
I'd be arm in arm with him on that one.
DeVito, he's not making the cut for you, right?
No, DeVito.
Okay. Even though your boy Eric is pumping him up, you're still not swayed?
No. I respect Eric's opinion, but not on DeVito today.
Tim, Jose's got a question that I don't like either option for cash. You tell me. Aaron Jones or Breece Hall for cash? I think those are both very much no's for me. I don't see it. You tell me.
Very much no's. Yes. No way.
I don't know how he's building. That's like a last man in, but I don't. Yeah, to me, those guys are not cash game plays. Can you handle a threefer, Tim? A DK cash threefer? Can you handle that? Is it early enough for you? Have you had your coffee?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm thinking it over.
Brendan, I'll throw it out if the people are not reading the chat. It's Puka, Demarcus Robinson, and the Jets versus Rice, Shaheed, and the Rams. Shaheed, you probably want Olave out. You don't need him out, but you want him out. Puka's the best play in this group, right? By far.
That's the thing. It's like I would like it to be like Puka, Shaheed, Puka, Shaheed if Olave's out, and then you could go a little bit different at defense. So because I don't really like Rice today, and that might be a horrible take. But I don't really like.
I
Rice
like him
today.
for what it's worth.
You do?
But I'm kind of I mean, we've seen his role increase every single week now, and he's very, very clearly like not even a conversation. Their best receiver. Yep. It's not, and Mahomes has to trust somebody. And we see what a disaster his receiving core is. And Rice is basically no longer a rookie at this point, right? Week 15.
Dean would like Rice at 6'1". It's like a Dean play.
Well, it's also this is a cash question. This is a cash question, Bobby. So this is not like you want to bring the ownership. That's a different conversation. I understand if you want to fade him in tournaments, but I think he's a really solid cash game play.
Okay. No, I definitely respect your opinion in cash games, so I'm with you.
We have I thought is that Binefor? It's Binefor's music. It's not Squirrel Patrol. It's Rob's music. Did we get a late swap? Or was just misreported?
I don't know. I just got sent the stuff from Sosa this morning, so we're here.
You know what? I think it says Squirrel Patrol in the tweet. Isn't Squirrel Patrol at a live final? I think he's got a couple live finals.
I think so.
Today.
We're winging it, Dean. It's week 15. We've been here. We've been grinding this season a long time. We're just having fun now. Let's be honest. What you guys both care about more than anything, it's best ball season, right? Your season officially starts today because you guys do the Spike Week stuff.
Dean, our season officially starts in February. I don't know if you know how this works.
You guys are sickos and they're drafting in February. But you probably have a real edge in February too, I would imagine. How far after the Super Bowl? Like a week? You give it a week and then you start drafting? I don't know when the drafts are available.
Oh, I think the big board's like a week after the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, are you rooting for your best ball teams first, I guess, and then DFS teams? How does that work? Or you have no idea what to root for?
The full plan is to play everyone I do not have on my best ball teams in DFS. So if you want to listen to this show and get
a hedge.
Yeah, exactly. As a hedge. Why do I love Derrick Henry this week? It's not because he crushes the Texans every single time. It's because I don't have him on any best ball teams. So that's the advice you're going to get here. Obviously,
Obviously kidding, but it is a tough sweat. I do have like a lot of guys I really like today for DFS that aren't necessarily on my best ball teams. And here we're emotionally hedging, I think, a little bit between DFS and best ball today.
How do you guys feel the Lamar stacks for best ball this week? Are they going to be good?
Not if it's 60 mile an
Yeah,
hour
60.
winds.
I had to read that report three times.
Really?
I had to read
what has changed
3 times.
Roth updated the weather, and he said he even put in there like I'm not kidding or something like that, 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts in the Ravens game, which I'm not. I'm on Team Lamar this week, so I'm right there with you. I really need Lamar,
Me
and
too.
that's not optimal. It doesn't seem optimal.
I saw the line. I saw Roth post in Scores and Odds. He put the under. Like he's only going to put a bet in there if he feels really good about a weather read. And I did bet the under this morning because he likes the under in Baltimore, Jacksonville. I think it's dropped at least a point. Looks like it's down to 40.5. And yeah, high resolution forecast and hitting Jacksonville with brace yourselves 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts while the storm moves through. That's later on, so I suppose this could change, and he'll give it an update later on. But it could be a fun showdown slate. And I know, Bobby, you've been crushing those showdowns, so you want to keep an eye on Ross Report as well. Of course, we have showdown content on the site. We have showdown content live on this channel. That's why you hit like. That's why you subscribe. That's why you turn on notifications. 7:30 or so, they go live and talk about the showdown. We're going to step aside and get out of here. Before we do that, though, I need a hot take on the main slate. We're not talking about Baltimore and Jacksonville just yet. That's in the back burner. Tim, who's breaking the slates? Who's going to win all the American dollars today?
I'm going to go with Rashad White to be on the Millie Maker winning team.
All right, see it and raise it, Bobby.
I'm going to go Derrick Henry.
Son of a.
I think Josh Allen, like either naked or Josh Allen with Cooks or James Cook, or maybe it's a Gabe Davis week. Some weeks he gets 0. So he's the perfect best ball guy. So I think I might play a little Gabe Davis.
Perfect is a little extreme, Dean. That the zeros are not perfect. The big weeks are fun.
You know what it is? Wait, you want the spike weeks? Wink, wink. Yeah, have you heard that term before? By chance,
first time.
Feel free to give it a Google. You might be interested. Myself and Bobby and Tim, we do appreciate y'all watching the first portion. We're going to yield to the tournament takes here that come from Rob and Eric. I think we have Dre and TJ Zwarych, both the New Orleans fans, the Saints fans coming on later on. In fact, we yield. Take it away, Eric.
It is funny. Dean mentioned do we have a sub at the last minute? I had just assumed I was on this morning and then got a message from Sosa like, I read the schedule wrong. Here's the StreamYard link or whatever. And I was like, wait, what is happening? Am I doing this show? Am I not doing this show? But here we are. GPP Final Takes. We are letting Squirrel go win all the money because, of course, it is a live final weekend and he is there. Nobody wants to hear your tilts, Rob, but this has not been my best year. And even when I've had my good weeks, we haven't quite shipped that live final seat. We haven't quite shipped that big tournament. So that's what today is for. We've been building all the way up to this. And I do think this is an awesome tournament slate. Like it is, I say awesome because I feel like the chalk is going to get very condensed. Some of the best plays are pretty obvious. And there's a lot of gross weather spots that are going to really push people away from certain games and on to just the handful of good games that we have. Of course, if you've not watched this show before, it is GPP Final Takes. We're going to be mostly focused on tournaments. We're going to be mostly focused on kind of the highlights, the keynotes, the most important things that we need to discuss and think through for our tournament lineups. We will not necessarily go game by game. We will not necessarily go position by position. We're going to kind of bounce around. We're going to talk some weather, unfortunately. We're going to talk some injuries, right? We're going to talk some positions and, of course, some games as well. Most importantly, drop your questions in the chat. If you are watching, you have any question at all, the whole point of this is for you guys to get your questions answered. We'll try to cover them in our normal conversation, but of course, I will try to hit as many of your questions as we possibly can. If it is a FanDuel specific question or a DraftKings specific question or tournament versus cash, we'll mostly be focused on tournaments. Go ahead and designate that, and we will hit as much of it as we can. But first, I always like to kind of go over like a little bit higher macro level, kind of how are we thinking about this slate? What are we, when we first open up DK on desktop or the app or Lineup HQ or whatever, what's the thing that we're thinking about that we need to attack for this slate. And I actually think, curious what you think, Rob, but it feels like the running back position to me this week is like so important because we have a couple of injury situations. Ramondre Stevenson still out, Zeke off his best game in 5 years or whatever at a good price, particularly on DraftKings. Brian Robinson out, so we have Antonio Gibson at a cheap price, again, also particularly on DraftKings. Christian McCaffrey always seems pretty good in about as good of a spot as you can get. Oh, by the way, he scored 50 fantasy points against this team earlier in the season. We talked about Derrick Henry, but I do think Derrick Henry is in a good spot against Case Keenum and Robert Woods and co. There's a lot of running backs, but the chalk is definitely going to be consolidating down, right? Kyron Williams, CMC, Zeke, Gibson, everybody's going to be gravitating there, but we do have a lot of other options. Bijan mentioned Derrick Henry. You know, Rashad White was mentioned on the segue over. How are you thinking through the running back position? And is that also like kind of one of your things you're really focused on when you start to build out lineups?
Well, the first thing I had to think about was I had this whole opening monologue ready for this because I thought it was me and Squirrel Patrol. I had this Squirrel Claws line I was ready, teed up
for
him to help me unwrap this slate. And now it's all thrown away, all of it, because we're going to blame Sosa for messing up the graphic. But I can't
blame Squirrel for making so much money.
Yeah, stop making so much money, Squirrel. What is this? So the way I started thinking about this slate, and I still have to build my lineups. When we finish this show, I'll be building my single entry lineups, and maybe this will help me unlock a few things. But all I've heard all week is our Super Bowl, which is Rams Commanders, right? In the best ball space, me and you are actively watching that game. And we hear this game getting talked about all week, but I feel like every time I hear this game talked about, for the most part, it's in the same context. It's basically play through Matthew Stafford, maybe double stack him. I mean, Kyron's Kyron this week, right? We all want Kyron. But I'm not hearing much on the Commander side other than Antonio Gibson. I think people are going to start getting take locked on Gibson this week. Understandable, especially from a cash game perspective, but from tournaments, it really feels like the easy way to play this game is in reverse. I know Howell's like projected as the third highest owned quarterback right now, but I think that might come in a little under ownership, and I don't think it's going to be a high ownership on Howell anyways. So I think you could play this game through Howell, McLaurin, who I think is going to be relatively under-owned. I think people are getting scared to play McLaurin at this point. And that's kind of the way I've started to think through this slate. I know Jaden Reed's a hot name this week because of the price and everything, and everyone's talking about him. But I think to stick on the running back topic, I love Bijan this week for multiple reasons. He's playing Carolina. The weather isn't going to be great. I think we're getting some gust winds there as well.
It's bad. Yeah. It's bad.
So I like that. And I also, if you want to bring back, I think you have intense leverage with Jonathan Mingo coming off another bad game. I know the weather's terrible, but they're looking for short, like slant like routes for Jonathan Mingo as they play him. So if you're just looking for a guy to bring back on Bijan, or you can play Bijan as a one-off. So
or Falcons defense. Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of the way that my brain is starting to lean in terms of building is Bijan, Howell stacks, maybe with Kyron bring back. If I can get some low ownership on other stuff, it's okay that I have high ownership. Kyron is kind of like the way I'm building through on my brain at the moment.
Yep. I think so too. I think that's, you kind of outlined some specific examples, but how I'm kind of thinking through it too, where I think it's difficult in any individual tournament lineup, especially if you play kind of like how I play, where it's, I'm going to make 1 to 3 lineups a Sunday. I'm generally playing a little bit smaller field type stuff. And I think it's pretty difficult to get away from like every single piece of chalk, nor do I think that, you shouldn't like actively go out and say, I'm going to play a bunch of 1% guys, especially on this slate. But I do think you probably are going to end up eating something that is reasonably popular. And some weeks I actually don't feel that way. Some weeks I feel like all the chalk is like really exploitable, and I'm willing to just go in and play, a low-owned game stack with some low-owned running backs or whatever. This week's a little bit trickier, And so to your point, I'm looking for some of those like direct leverage points. I'm looking for, okay, everybody clearly loves, like you said, the Rams game, as they should. I mean, that, and we'll definitely talk about Cowboys Bills are like the best games of the week. The 49ers game, all the afternoon games, I guess. The 49ers game is one of the best games of the week, but mainly because the 49ers are going to score a lot of points, not as much about the Cardinals. But we have this Rams Commanders game that everybody loves. Everybody clearly likes Kyron, to a lesser extent likes the Rams wide receivers. And yet we're still so scared off, a collective industry, by the Commanders wide receivers, pass catchers, not named Antonio Gibson, that it's creating like pretty clean leverage, right? All Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel have to do really is outscore Antonio Gibson. And all Sam Howell really has to do is outscore Matthew Stafford. And like, you just jumped a lot of teams, like that one little tiny decision, right? And we're expecting the Rams to score a lot, and thus we're expecting the Commanders to pass a lot, and they're going to pass a lot. That's all they do. And so if they just like can hang in there, I don't see why the Howell stacks aren't, even at, like you said, not like low ownership, but good tournament plays. Am I going to sit here and pretend that I know the exact answer to which Washington wide receiver it is? No, sir. I absolutely do not. But I think that each of them individually make for really strong tournament plays that are just going to get left behind a little bit. So I'm a big fan of what you outlined there. We got a couple of good questions. You want to talk about a segue into one of my we're way too early for one of these disgusting tournament plays that I like. I tagged in lineup HQ, but Sanquin Starks says the best cheap tight end play. I feel like we don't give enough love sometimes to the tight ends on this show. They get left behind a little bit. I'm gonna bring up a couple. The chalk, the best, if I were just like ignoring everything about, tournaments and all that kind of stuff, the best cheap tight end play to me is very much so Tucker Kraft. The field knows that. The market knows that Tucker Kraft is the best cheap tight end play because he is definitely going to be by far the most popular tight end on the slate right now on, I shouldn't say that. On FanDuel right now, we project Travis Kelce and Tucker Kraft about the same. I actually would be a little surprised, even on FanDuel, if Travis Kelce is higher owned than Tucker Kraft. But 4.7K on FanDuel, 3K flat on DraftKings. You really can't get much better than that for Tucker Kraft. He is playing, this is not an exaggeration, not hyperbole. He is playing every snap of the game on offense. They don't really have any other tight ends, and they've lost wide receivers, right? Christian Watson is out. Dontavian Wicks is banged up, which we'll get news on injuries here in a few minutes. Kraft is the standout clear. If I have a lineup that makes sense where Tucker Kraft fits and I don't have, all this other chalk, right? My combinatorial ownership makes sense. I'm more than happy to play Tucker Kraft. The matchup is very good for him. I also think he's like sneakily kind of good, but I do think we can get fun with some other cheap tight ends that are pivots off of him. And just to stick on the Washington thing for a minute, I think the Washington guys are in play. I say guys because probably not in like your single entry small field team, but in the super duper large field stuff, I think you can play Logan Thomas and just expect them to stay status quo when he's playing almost every snap at tight end. And like in a good matchup, Logan Thomas seems good. I also think in like large field, you want to take shots. I'm going to throw some Millie teams in with my boy Cole Turner because they just had a bye last week. They are awful. The Commanders, awful. They're out of the playoffs. I think there's reason to believe they could turn it over to their young guy, who we thought might have been the starter coming into the season, even with Logan Thomas. So those two guys stand out to me, and obviously Tucker Kraft. What do you think about some cheap tight ends?
Well, I think the Tucker Kraft thing, he's going to come in, as you outlined, really heavily owned in tournaments today in terms of the tight end position. I think the easiest direct leverage for a guy that's kind of good, which is like, if you look up tight end in the in the dictionary, the definition is generally kind of good football player, right? We don't have many elite or great tight ends in the NFL. But if we're looking for a kind of good cheap tight end, let's stick in that game and let's just go to the other team and let's play Cade Otton, right? He's 3.2K. Chris Godwin's expected to play, but he's pretty banged up. People are looking to pivot to Trey Palmer. I mean, Mike Evans, I like Mike Evans almost every week at this point. Baker Mayfield and him have some sort of connection, but Kate Otten is getting targeted. So if we're reducing a little bit of Godwin's workload, or even if we're not, against the Green Bay Packers, I think Kate Otten could be one of those guys that you can slide in there. You want to play Jaden Reed, a natural bring back is Kate Otten, if that's something you want to do. If we're gonna probably talk about Jordan Love stacks. I think that an easy way to pivot off the Jordan Love chalk stack is to bring it back with Kate Otten. I think people are going to be looking to bring it back with a wide receiver. Why not bring it back with Rashad White? Let's bring it back with Kate Otten. Let's make that Green Bay game real cheap as our stack and bring back, and then just load up on high-priced players around that entire game stack. And then you get your McCaffreys, your Kyron Williams and stuff. So I think Kate Otten is one of those guys that you can absolutely slide in there. I'm not expecting, him to break the slate by any means, but he's as live for a touchdown as any tight end on the slate for the most part.
Definitely. So we just got some news that I do want to discuss, and I do think it's relevant to tight end, but it's also extremely relevant just to the slate as a whole. It sounds like Chris Olave is going to be out, per Nick Underhill from Saints beat reporter, and he's about we should expect these early Sunday reports to be accurate, but Underhill's about as good as it gets in the whole space. So I do assume, I'm making the assumption that Chris Olave is not going to play today. That is a couple of different things. On the tight end note, we'll get to the wide receivers and the whole downstream impacts of no Chris Olave. But I actually think it does mean this is not a cheap tight end. So kind of moving away from the original question. But like the Saints are in this must-win stretch. There's 3 teams tied at the top of that division. I mean, they all suck, but still, they're all trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Derek Carr is not exactly lighting the world on fire, in case you haven't been watching the 2023 season. Alvin Kamara is good, but they can't just line up and run the football and dominate people. They have a pretty decent matchup with the Giants, but also one of the few games in a dome today, Saints and Giants. And no Chris Olave, no Michael Thomas. We'll talk about Rashid Shaheed and the wide receivers, but I think that Taysom Hill at tight end makes for a pretty appealing tournament play. And when I look, I'm looking at DraftKings specifically. Oops, wrong sort there. He's the 3rd highest priced tight end. And A, I think it's for a good reason. But B, I think no matter what, even with this Olave stuff, there's just no way $5,500 Taysom Hill gets steamed, because the market just can never exactly figure out what to do with him, right? How do you project him? You give him an 8% target share and 6 carries and 2 pass attempts. And it's like, what the heck do I do with that? In my projections, in my models. And I just think they're going to continue to lean a little bit more onto Taysom. And so this puts Taysom Hill more in play for tournaments. What do you think about him? And then how are you feeling with Olave out about, Shaheed and the other Saints skill players?
I think we should just talk about this game as a whole in general, because I'm kind of interested in certain pieces on both sides of the ball here, especially because we get a dome game with the Saints and the Giants. And we're talking, we're not usually big on weather, but we have a lot of weather implications today on this slate. So we actually do get the dome in a game that's starting to get real gross. Taysom, what are we projecting his ownership out now, right? It's like 2%.
I'll refresh. Yeah, I'll refresh in a minute. I'll let the team go to work on the Olave stuff. It'll update. I suppose it'll be higher than 2%, but I can't imagine it's, we're going to flip the cards over and you're seeing 18% Taysom or anything.
It's going to be tough. I think people are going to get really take locked on Kraft today, and it's going to be hard for them to go to the pay up option.
$2,500 is a lot of money savings, and even on FanDuel, Kraft is $4,700. So I agree. I'm not worried about Kraft not being chalk all of a sudden.
I think you could actually play either of the tight ends from New Orleans, though. I think Juwan Johnson is probably going to get peppered with targets as well today. Taysom, I think, is probably a great play. I personally would probably play Taysom on double tight end teams today, just because of the versatility of the play with him.
Taysom Juwan stacks. Taysom's going to play some quarterback and toss it. Let's Galbrain this shit. Let's really
go real nuts here. Yeah. You want to get nuts? We can get nuts. So I do think that both of them are viable. I don't think I'm going to take Rashid Shaheed today. I know they'll probably give him some work. They're obviously going to give him work, but I don't, how much is his role actually going to change with Olave out?
That's the thing. I really struggle with him specifically because he's the best next to wide receiver they have. So naturally, when the other guys get ruled out, I'm including Michael Thomas, and I know he's been out for weeks, but you know what I mean? When the other guys are out, it's natural to just say, okay, he's the next best wide receiver. He's clearly going to get a huge boost. And I do think that he's underpriced now. Right. I think that's fair. That's totally fair to say. But Rashid Shaheed, for anyone that doesn't know, was like a college return man. I'd have to look it up. He's fun. He's got a lot of juice. He's a big play threat. You know, he's a good return man and all that fun stuff. But this isn't the guy that you like pile up 15 targets onto and go win the game. You know what I mean? And so I think it's possible his ownership now is going to far exceed what like the real role growth is here. Dude, we've seen this now. Like Olave's been playing, but Shaheed has been out. The rotation of all these vagabonds that the Saints have, like it's like Sean Payton left town, but they didn't leave. Sean Payton's mantras stuck behind. Keith Kirkwood is out there getting snaps, right? Lynn Bowden is out there getting snaps. A.T. Perry, my guy who gets one catch for 12 yards every single week. Like they're rotating, right? Jimmy Graham is catching tight ends. He is a tight end who is catching touchdowns. They got Jawan and Foster Moreau. All these guys are playing. Yeah. Kamara is obviously going to get a small elevation. We'll talk about him a little bit too. I just think that I love Rashid Shaheed as a player. And frankly, we talked about the best ball bags that nobody wants to hear about on this show. It's good. I'm happy about that for those. But DFS, like Shaheed as one of the chalkiest guys on the slate feels a little tough for me. And I think I would rather, similar to what we talked about with the Washington leverage, like I love Antonio Gibson. I'm going to be rooting for him today. I kind of would rather leverage off him with McLaurin or Dotson or Samuel. Same thing. I love Rashid Shaheed. I understand why he's going to get more ownership. I kind of would rather leverage off him with Taysom or one of the tight ends or Kamara or, go to A.T. Perry or go to something like the other wide receivers are getting the boost too. It's not just Rashid Shaheed. And so the more I think about it, I love Rashid Shaheed. And again, similar to Tucker Kraft, if you have a team where it's like, I got a pretty contrarian team, right? Maybe I did the Washington thing. I'm playing some unique running backs. I got 4,300 left on DraftKings for Shaheed at wide receiver. Go for it. Go for it. He makes sense on some teams. But I think like making him a pillar of Olave's out, I got a GM Rashid Shaheed without considering the ownership and some leverage opportunities. I think that's probably a little bit of a mistake. What else about this game? Because we haven't talked about the Giants, haven't talked a lot about Kamara. Eric, shout out Eric, ERIC Johnson who's here with us pretty much every Sunday in the chat is touting Tommy DeVito. So he's in the right place to talk about some absolutely horrible, disgusting, cheap quarterbacks. But what else about this game before? Somebody asked about the weather. We will get to that. This is probably a good segue. This game is in a dome. Yeah. So we don't have to talk about the weather, but we will pivot to kind of the weather implications to Mark's question after this.
So just the best comparison for Shaheed in my mind is Ted Ginn, right? Like it doesn't matter who's in there, who's not in there. Ted Ginn was Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn was going to break the slate 2 or 3 times a year. That's Rashid Shaheed in a nutshell, basically. I don't think his role changes much. I do think Kamara's role increases a bit today with Olave out. I think we can see a couple more targets for him. People don't want to play Kamara this year. I understand it. I mean, it's not fun playing Saints, but this might be a great spot to play Kamara. But let's focus on the Giants side of the ball. There's 2 players that I think are really in play in this game. I know everyone wants to play Wan'Dale because he's like getting a huge target share, but I like Hyatt better for tournaments than I like Wan'Dale Robinson.
Oh, baby.
Right? I mean, this is the dude that you want to talk about Rashid Shaheed. I think he's a better version overall of Rashid Shaheed in this Giants offense of what he can do. I think he is totally capable of being second on the team in targets for the most part over, next to Wan'Dale, but depth of target is going to be way better for Jalen Hyatt. The Saints are pretty bad, like overall.
Yes.
Right. So we could actually see that Hyatt game break today. And Saquon Barkley's in a great spot too. 7.3 against against the Saints in a dome. I think I'm probably like you. I'm probably creating 3 single entry teams today that I will still run into the Millie at some point.
Of course.
But Barkley's probably going to be on one of those 3 teams, and I'm going to try to work Hyatt in there as well. He's almost min price, man. Like, how do you not just, you want to play Kamara? The easy way to lower that price tag, play Jalen Hyatt on the other side.
Yeah, I think this game is really, really fun. I think this, the more we talk through it, the more I think through it, that the whether I like, I what I will say is I do think you can kind of like stack this game up. You can, like you said, there's enough cheap pieces on both sides, whether it be Hyatt, Wandale, Juwan, obviously Shaheed, A.T. Perry, whatever. I'd have to look through. Maybe I'll try when I pass it to you at some point here to look at some of the ancillary Saints wide receiver snaps over the course of the last week. I had just assumed Olave was going to play all week, so I was not mentally prepared to be looking at Keith Kirkwood snap rates, for this slate. But we'll maybe try to take a look there and see if there's anything. I think ultimately it's probably A.T. Perry. That nobody wants to hear that again, but he's probably going to play pretty much every snap now. Shaheed, Perry, and then some kind of combination of, the tight ends and Bowden and Kirkwood out there. But I think this game, like, it was a little bit appealing before, and all of a sudden is like pretty appealing, not just because it's in a dome. Neither defense is very good, but it's consolidated now, right? There's opportunity available to everyone. Saquon was one of the chalkiest damn plays in the history of a 2-game slate ever last week, right? And nobody's playing him at like the same price in a good spot. He was the whole offense. I know Wandale had a good game, but like he was basically the whole offense, and he still is going to be the whole offense for the Giants. He's another one of those running backs that's like, look, I understand why people are playing Zeke, but I would rather play Saquon Barkley. I would rather play Alvin Kamara and like find a little bit of savings or whatever at wide receiver or at tight end and go that route than eat all the chalk with, especially with dust balls like Zeke in tournaments. We'll get to him and we'll get to the other guys. Let's see. We got some good questions here. First, sorry, there was somebody mentioned Waller is back. Yes. We haven't gotten an official. There's 3 more minutes until actives and inactives come out, but Waller is supposed to be back. My gut, I love to get out ahead of some of these things, but I can't do it with Waller yet today. It would be one thing if he had like been quite good before he went down and then he was coming back and we could like dive into to like, oh, okay, maybe he will have a full role. But like, we have questions about if he's going to have a full role, and he sucked with a full role before he even went down, and he's not that cheap. So I'm not personally in on Waller, but I do understand how you might think it could take away from some of these other guys. Let's see here.
And he's like that worst price ever, like the 4.4. It's just
3,500 or 6,500. Get me out of the middle. Like, I don't want to do that, Yeah. The defenses do also. We're talking about all the offenses. I think the defenses are both reasonable in this game. I mean, Derek Carr and the Saints are a mess, and they don't have Chris Olave or Michael Thomas. The Giants are playing Tommy DeVito, who's playing better, but it's not like he's awesome. And I don't think a lot of people are going to play these defenses. Would you prefer the Falcons are going to be a little bit more popular in that bad weather against Bryce Young? Would you like the Saints as a pivot off of the Falcons in tournaments?
Sure, but I kind of like the Giants defense today. Like doing a Saquon. I mean, the Giants are 2.7K. They're relatively cheap. I know they're like projected to be one of the, they're only projected for 6% ownership. Derek Carr, who's he going to throw to? Derek Carr has been looking like the angry orange in full effect out there lately. So, I mean, I like the Giants D. They've been sneakily pretty decent too. So I guess I could play the Saints, but they're so expensive. I would just rather play the Giants in the same game.
Yep, I agree. Let's see here. Trying to get to some more questions. I thought there was some more on this game. I apologize. There's not. All right, the boss man asked a question. You got to answer the boss man's questions, but it is a good one because it also plays into the weather. I'm gonna pull up the weather because it's naturally very, very tied to how we discuss this game and how we discuss Bijan. I tagged Bijan in lineup HQ this week.
Is Dan calling me a nobody? Because I literally brought Bijan up to start this show.
That's correct. He is. Yes.
All right,
that's exactly.
Gonna get a Slack message from me, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, don't fire me, but please don't say that ever again. Obviously, we both, I think, in a vacuum like Bijan, but how are you treating the fact that this game was gross to begin with? I mean, Falcons Panthers is just a gross game, but we just talked about Saints Giants, which is also a gross game. How are you kind of balancing the fact of it's a pretty good price for Bijan, the volume is way up, the matchup is good, but like expecting a bunch of production in this game feels tough given the two offenses and given it's real bad weather. I'm gonna pull it up here, but I keep going back and forth on Bijan. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I still like him. I think, look, it's Arthur Smith. We've seen a lot of improvement with the players that we want to see him playing a bit. And I do think that a game like this, you might see a little more Algier than you would want to see overall. But I still think it's a great spot for Bijan. The explosiveness in a rain game for a running back like this, like give me Bijan. I said, what, 3 lineups I make? He's probably going to be in definitely 1, possibly 2 of those 3 lineups. I really like this spot. There's a few rain games that I like the spots of. And there's a guy, after we get out of this game, I think we have to talk about Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
And then there's another game that's in the rain that I'd like to talk about. But I really like Bijan. And I think that one of those 2 Bijan teams is just easily, I'm going to bring it back with Jonathan Mingo without question.
Yeah, so we will get to the actives and inactives. I know the comments are coming in. My tilt is brewing over from all of this, but we'll get to that. Give me just a second. Let's polish up the weather, and then we'll pivot to the Dolphins. So you can tell my tilt is my this is best ball tilt. I'll let it pass here in just a second. But the weather is very, very important in today. It's also important in that game. Not as important in that game, but Atlanta. Obviously, I have Kevin Roth's weather report, best weatherman in the business, and I take. Obviously, I always listen to everything that Roth says about the weather, but in particular, like Dean said, if you were listening at the open when we segued, when we transitioned us in. When Roth has a very strong take and he's yellow right on the Tyreek or the non-Tyreek game, the Jets and the Dolphins, likely dry, can't fully rule out a stray shower. I can't speak this morning. Winds 15 to 20 miles an hour sustained. So honestly, when he says that, he puts it yellow. I'm like, he's just letting you know that there's going to be some wind. Don't tilt too hard when a Tua ball hangs up in the air. It's knuckleballing around up in the air. Don't get too upset about that. But he's saying don't really worry about it. When he says, well, we see with Atlanta, Carolina, it's going to rain. He chooses his words specifically. It's going to rain buckets in this game all game long. Plus, we've got winds around 15 miles an hour with gusts around 25 miles an hour, potentially up to 35 miles per hour. So he's letting you know this is bad. This is really, really bad. Like if the wind were at all worse, he would probably make this orange red. I think it's teetering close to about as bad as it gets. So I generally, why I'm kind of waffling on Bijan, I generally move away even from running backs in these games. Not because they aren't going to get more work, not because they can't have good games. The game is just so gross. If it was high-powered offenses, I could maybe stomach it or something, but I can just so easily see both of these teams running it into the back of their offensive linemen. This game's over in an hour and 15 minutes or whatever, and get out of Dodge and get home. Falcons win 7-3 or 7-0 or something like that. Slight exaggerations, but I'm leaning a little bit more away from that game. Chicago, Cleveland is one I don't think a lot of people have a ton of interest in, but I have
a real hot take on this game.
Okay, we can give it here in just a second. A little bit worse than Jets, Dolphins. So I'm slightly concerned about it, but I'm not avoiding players in this game because of the weather is how I would say it. And then the only other weather situation to monitor is not till the showdown slate. I'm not worried about, Roth says interesting development with Dallas Buffalo. Make sure follow him on Twitter, turn on some notifications. He'll post if it gets, before the afternoon slate, if something here changes. He says that, right? I highly recommend checking on my updates pregame because we don't know. It could get really bad. It could be okay. but just make sure to monitor that one. Other than that, I'm really not worried about the weather other than Atlanta, Carolina. So give your Bears Browns hot take so we can bury that game and talk about the freaking Dolphins.
I think we are severely underlooking the Fields DJ Moore stack today. Like severely underlooking it. It is, I was just looking at Fields projected ownership. It's like around 3%. He's below guys that as you look at, you're just like, how are we not looking more at Justin Fields? Like we have Baker Mayfield above him. We have Will Levis above him. We have Joe Flacco above him. And in the same game, Fields is coming in at like 3.9% ownership, 7K. DJ Moore is averaging, I think, over 20 points a game with Justin Fields. The Cleveland secondary is extremely banged up right now. The weather looks like, I mean, it's teetering that yellow-orange, but with Fields' legs, I think I'm going to do a skinny Fields DJ Moore stack in 1 or 2 of my single entries for sure. Definitely 1. And I think that Fields DJ Moore takes down the Millie today.
I love that take. I also think the fun part about this game is that I love the games. Actually, it's a big reason why Howell is so awesome in DFS, but it's the same thing. I love the games that I don't need to nail a monster shootout to have a huge fantasy day, right? Obviously, that means a lot of when the quarterbacks run, but also when it's consolidated on both sides, which in this one it very much is. DJ Moore mostly, but DJ Moore, Cole Kmet to a lesser extent. So Fields is going to run and he's going to throw it to DJ Moore, right? They're going to run the running backs, right? Donta Foreman or whatever. Fields is going to run or Fields is going to throw it to DJ Moore. 3 outcomes on the Bears offense. On the Browns offense, it's like, okay, we're going to run, same thing. We're going to run Ford / Hunt, or I'm going to throw it to Amari, Elijah Moore, or David Njoku. And they're throwing a lot. And I'm not saying you have to play Joe Flacco. I'm not sure I want to play Joe Flacco in some bad weather. But if you play Joe Flacco the last 2 weeks, like when no one else is playing him at super cheap prices, you've been printing money. And I've been like an idiot. This is literally my bag. This is what I do best, is play the Joe Flaccos of the world. I've just been playing his pass catchers, and that has worked well. Elijah Moore 2 weeks ago, David Njoku last week, like helped me actually start to turn my DFS season around. But like if I had just been like, why don't you just play Flacco, dummy? You love his wide receivers. And I'm not saying to play him today. Again, the Bears defense is a little bit of a different beast than what they've been playing. The Bears defense has been quite good. I mean, you saw what the Lions did last week or last night, and they, granted outside, but they shut them down. The Bears did. But that's why I'm talking about, I don't need to nail the shootout, right? Fields throws 2 touchdowns. They both go to DJ Moore. Fields runs 1 touchdown in. Joe Flacco throws 1 or 2 touchdowns, but they go to which one of the Bears I played or which 2 of the Bears that I played. It's like, yeah, dude, like I'm totally in for that. And nobody's playing that one. Like nobody's playing that game stack. So that's definitely a tournament stack that I really, really like. As Shannon says, like Amari Cooper, we can average Amari, he's 24 years old for his entire life. Like we can make all the funny jokes that we want, but they're like Flacco is just peppering him with targets. And so I agree. Shout out Malcolm. Boots on the ground. He's in Cleveland. The rain is coming down, but it's not bad. Let me tell you what, Joe Flacco. You ever seen Joe Flacco play? He don't care about a little light rain. He is out there. He's going to sling that pigskin around. May not go where he wants it to go all the time, but he's going to sling it. I like that game. All right, let's talk about the stupid elephant in the room. Tyreek Hill is out. I can't believe Tyreek Hill is out. His wife did not call him. He did not call his wife this morning to inform him that he needs to play. I got a little bit of a hot take on this one, I think. But I'm curious your just general thoughts on how to handle. I'm sure you've thought through if Tyreek didn't play, what are you doing with the Dolphins?
I think it's tough because we've seen the Dolphins without Tyreek, and the Dolphins without Tyreek are not the Dolphins, right? They do not look good. And now they're playing against a division rival for the second time this year, which, as cliche as it sounds, it is a big deal a lot of the time, especially when that division rival has a really lockdown defense. So you take away this explosive part of the offense. Waddle has not looked like Waddle for most of the year, even with Tyreek Hill out there. So where do we want to go here on this Dolphins offense? It's already concentrated. No one's stepping into the quote unquote Tyreek Hill role.
Quickly, Achane is playing. So I want to put that out there as well. So Tyreek is the only guy that's out. Achane is playing.
Yeah, which is great because I mean, we love Achane. We love Mostert. It just feels like this is going to be a slog it out type of game. It's not going to be explosive at all. So it's weird to say. I have some interest in both of the Dolphins backs, maybe Waddle here or there, but I'm not like forcing myself to get Waddle at all, if that makes sense. And on the other side of the ball, Garrett Wilson's really been coming along. I'm actually kind of more interested in the Jets side of the ball now, because Garrett Wilson feels like he's getting 100 targets a game, and Breece Hall is explosive. So do I want them both in the same lineup? No. But with Zach Wilson finally going, what are they going to do? Bench me is like his exact mantra right now. He's actually been playing a little bit better. I mean, he's still Zach Wilson, but Garrett Wilson is getting these targets. So I think if I'm playing either side of the ball, it's the Jets. And I think if you want my spiciest take of this game, is I think people are still scared of the Miami offense, which rightfully so.
You're going to
play the Jets defense. Play the Jets defense.
That's all I was going to fucking say. Pardon my French. All I was going to say was, you know what my answer is to this? Scratch her off and play the $2,500 Jets defense. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. As you said, and as Mr. Gerg says, Miami looked bad without Tyreek last week against the Titans pass funnel. The Titans give up passing, right? Everybody cooks the Titans passing defense. The Dolphins couldn't move the ball without Tyreek Hill, essentially, slight exaggeration. The Jets have a really good defense. The thing about Waddle and all the wide receivers is it's not just like we removed Tyreek and it's like a neutral matchup. This is like the stone worst matchup for wide receivers. The Jets have the best corners in the entire NFL. They have one of the best pass defenses in the entire NFL. If you wanted to attack them, right, it's kind of like over the middle of the field. You saw like Dalton Kincaid pick up a bunch of extra targets. You'll see the teams go over the middle to tight ends and slot receivers. But like, are you going to play Braxton Berrios? Like, that's the answer to that question, because it's not Durham Smythe. The answer to that question is like, going to play Braxton Berrios? Like, is Braxton Berrios going to win you a tournament against a good defense in not awesome weather? I don't think so. I'm playing the Jets defense. I'm telling you right now, when you go see my main single entry team on DraftKings, it's going to have the Jets defense. That's my answer to this game. I apologize if you wanted some super spicy Cedric Wilson or River Craycraft takes or whatever. I love to have those, but I like the Saints wide receivers, cheap wide receivers, the Giants cheap wide receivers, and of course the Commanders wide receivers that we talked about before. Even like the chalkier Packers guys, I would rather play a chalkier Jaden Reed and such than the Dolphins guys. Maybe I'll end up wrong and Tua cooks, but he didn't cook with Tyreek in this matchup the last time. I don't see how he cooks in this one. And yes, amen, Mark. We're not here to talk about best ball, but if I accidentally cursed, apologize, Dan and the company, but it's because I'm rage tilting. I'm rage to Tyreek and Chris Olave. I mean, Jesus, come on.
Some of us are really getting bailed out in best ball this week.
Yeah, this is painful. This is absolutely painful. Amen, Mr. Gerg. The Jets have now become my favorite defense. They're going to pick up some ownership, right? The field is sharp enough to understand, oh, you removed Tyreek, right? Now my model likes the Jets more, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Right. It's kind of the inverse of Shaheed. I think Shaheed's going to get a big boost and like maybe too much, whereas the Jets defense is definitely going to get a boost in ownership, but I'm not sure that it's going to be enough. Like if we came in knowing all week, right, Tyreek was out, I think people would have been planning with the Jets in their lineup, but we haven't really had a punt defense that was available to us. Like people are going to play the Patriots against the Chiefs and stuff. I think people have been paying up at defense, and now when it totally changes your roster construction on Sunday mornings, and it's a little bit surprising, I don't think the field necessarily adjusts quite as much. So I'm on the Jets. Shannon wants to, are you playing? And I'm not. Like I said, my answer to this game is, I'll be rooting for Garrett Wilson and Breece today for other reasons, but I just like the game environments elsewhere are just so much better, and I can just play the Jets defense and get my action here.
Yeah, I'm not playing Zach Wilson today, but I might. If Garrett Wilson fits, I'm not jamming Garrett Wilson in. If he fits in a lineup, I'll play him, but it's not a go out of my way thing. My quarterbacks, like just for full transparency, my 3 quarterbacks that I'm looking at are Fields, Howell, and Mahomes, I believe, for today.
Okay. We'll talk about Mahomes and such. That this is definitely fair. Xavier Howard and Javon Hollander are Hollander, I forget, but are out for the Dolphins. Yeah, totally. I understand if you want to play the Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson. I mean, I do think Jalen Ramsey, will see more of Garrett Wilson. Not to be that wide receiver cornerback matchup guy, but yeah, cue up your Xavier Gibson. There you go. Xavier Gibson, Jets D, when he catches a touchdown from Zach Wilson because Xavier Howard is out and he returns a punt for a touchdown. The old double dip that we don't get to use any more of.
Speaking of Ted Ginn.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting all sorts of obscure, awful references over the course of this entire show. We haven't talked, I know we talked a little bit about Bucks Packers, but I just want to address it again quickly, mainly through the lens of the wide receivers. And Mr. Richard mentions, so Aaron Jones is playing, AJ Dillon is not playing, and of course Christian Watson is still out with the hamstring. I think people are. It's funny because they're in on the wide receivers and Tucker Kraft because Christian Watson is out, but they're not taking into account necessarily that how much that impacts Jordan Love. Like, I don't think he's going to, Jordan Love's not going to be like mega chalk, but I don't know, dude. Let's call it 10. I'm going to round up 10% Jordan Love on this slate against, I know the Bucks are a good matchup, but like in December in Green Bay, he has been bad without Christian Watson. Like, I'm not saying Christian Watson is Tyreek Hill, okay? But like, we're just talking about how Tua is not Tua and the Dolphins are not the Dolphins without Tyreek Hill. The Packers' resurgence and like this run they've been on has been when Christian Watson has been playing. Is that correlation or causation? I don't have the exact answer, but it certainly feels like some causation that Christian Watson is a big deal for this offense. And then the funny thing is, the one guy who probably benefits from all of this the most is Aaron Jones, because AJ Dillon is out and he's also going to probably catch some more passes, but nobody's playing him.
Right.
And so I just find it to be interesting. I don't know that I'll get to Aaron Jones, but he makes for a pretty fun tournament play, like a big leverage play off of all these other guys. And you mentioned K-Dot and whatever, but the Packers are one that I just feel like the market is maybe getting wrong a little bit.
It might not even be getting it wrong, just like way too much of it, right? Like Jaden Reed at 30% ownership is a clear scratch off for me. Like, I mean, if 30% of people or more are going to play Jaden Reed in these tournaments, I don't even hate Jaden Reed. I like Jaden Reed. Look at
he's really good
teams. He's good, but 30%. I mean, he's not even 3K. He's 4.9K. I think we're kind of blowing this out of proportion with his price tag. He's still 5K. This is like Drake London price range, where we're like, Drake London's a little underpriced. Jaden Reed, I just don't like it in terms of price, ownership. This game, I know people are looking at these Jordan Love stacks. We've talked about this game for a few different ways. I think this is the perfect like 1v1, like where you just have one Packer, one Buccaneer on your team. Whether it be Aaron Jones does feel really good if he's going to be way under-owned. I like that position on it. I love Mike Evans. We've talked about Mike Evans already. You can scratch Chris Godwin off the books with, it seems like he might be a little bit limited, although we always hear that. Trey Palmer, though, like, why are we going to go to Trey Palmer in this game as a cheap wide receiver for the Bucks? I know people keep wanting to play him. He's got some explosiveness. That's another one you could play. But I think for me, it's going to be Evans. I think I'm going to stay away from Rachaad White today, although he's been killing it all year.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to look at Mike Evans. I'm going to look at K-Dot and then maybe Aaron Jones or Romeo Doubs as the guys that I'm looking to play in this game.
Yep. Jeffrey likes Dobbs pivot. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm a little bit major likes Malik Heath. That was going to be one of my deep cuts if Dontavian Wicks missed. It actually wasn't going to be Malik Heath, although it was a total coin flip between which 3K wide receiver it would actually be. But Samari Toure, if you watched last week, after Wicks went down, kind of took over, and he was actually like kind of really moving their offense down the field, which is crazy to say, but I think he's decent. Again, millie shots, like you want to take a millie shot on Malik Heath or Samari Toure, like they're going to touch the field. And I do think the Packers play a little bit of like oddly hot hand at wide receiver. Like when you go, like when Wicks earned some snaps and like and when he goes and makes a couple plays, they like leave him out there, right? Dobbs should play like the majority of snaps and Reed, but then that third spot, they're going to kind of be like, somebody go prove it, and they will ride a little bit of hot hand. So I do think those guys have appeal for like large field tournaments, Malik Heath, Samari Toure, whatever. Yeah. But I do want to, there's a lot to get to. I apologize, Donnie. We're not ignoring this game. I just want it to be known we're not ignoring this game. It is also a tough game to diagnose for DFS, like
super tough,
season long, best ball teams, whatever. Like, yes, wheels up on everybody in this game. How do you stack this game? Let's just go ahead and talk about that now. How do you stack this game in DFS is tough. I think this is one of the tougher questions to ask yourself. I'm going to include the 49ers into this one, where the afternoon looks awesome. I would love to leave about as many afternoon spots available to myself as possible. But both of these teams and the 49ers are the three basically highest projected scoring teams on the slate with the Rams. And yet it's hard to get to any of them. You see the ownership on this game. There's one person over 10%, and it's the guy who hasn't done shit all season.
How dare you?
Point chasing Tony Pollard. But like, that's the point is Stephon Diggs is 8,400, right? And this is just DraftKings pricing, but they're also equally expensive on FanDuel. Stephon Diggs is 8,400. CeeDee Lamb is 9,200. Josh Allen is 8,200. Dak Prescott is 8K, right? Even James Cook is like the same price as, Bijan and Aaron Jones and Rashad White and all that. Jake Ferguson, who I love, 4,800. He talks about the no man's land for tight end. Like, it's tough. It's very, very. Dawson Knox is back, which hurts Dalton Kincaid, which also hurts Khalil Shakir. It's like, Michael Gallup's rotating with Jalen Tolbert. Like, Brandon Cooks is pricier now. I don't have a great answer for this game other than like, I think it's going to score a lot of points. If I can get to it, I want it. But what do you think about this game? Because it's tough to fit them with the prices.
Well, let's just start with this incredible nickname you just created for Pollard, PCP. Point chasing Pollard.
I like it.
I mean, that's how we have to refer to him for the rest of the season. I like Diggs because I think that his ownership is going to be wrong, where it's coming in at 8% ownership. We got to remember this is a weather game as well.
Under, yeah.
It's going to be under. So I think if I'm going to play it, which I do want to play it at some point, Diggs is overpriced. He just hasn't produced the last 3 to 4 weeks that he's played.
Will his price ever go down?
It's just,
how
I
many
don't understand
7-point fantasy games do we have to have for him to not be the most expensive wide receiver on a slate? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's some of these guys just haven't budged. I mean, it's worked in the reverse too. When Drake London was actually producing, he was staying in that 5K range. It's like, thanks, I guess I'll take it, but it's working against us in this spot where I'd love to have a Diggs Pollard correlation. It's just, we've talked about cheap plays, but we've talked about the cheap plays because of all the other expensive guys we want to get. So getting this Diggs Pollard correlation, or hell, if you like CeeDee Lamb better, right? If you want to do CeeDee Lamb, he's 9.2K. It's really, really tough to get this game in. If I can fit him in, great. I'm not looking at James Cook because I don't think the Bills look enough at James Cook, even though he's clearly their best option. So I don't know. I mean, you can't stack Allen, and I just feel like you can't stack Allen and Diggs today and create a halfway decent lineup, right? I mean, you really have to punt so many positions to make that work properly, and it could kill us. Like, I would love to play Allen and Diggs today with a Pollard bring back, but then we're talking about playing Samaje Toure with Jonathan Mingo, with Kate Otten, right? Like, you have to just punt every other position. So
that was my take. I tagged Josh Allen here, myself and Noto, And I basically said, if I can afford him, I want to play Josh Allen. The problem is it's very difficult. It's very hard to afford him, right? So if you can make a team, that's my general stance on this. If you can make a team where you feel really good, right? You maybe you did do something like we talked about with the Giants Saints game. You stack that up with some of those cheapies in that game, right? You get yourself Hyatt and Shaheed or A.T. Perry or whatever, and then that gives you the ability to go get Josh Allen. I'm down for that. I don't know that I'll be playing that. Like, I can get the Rams Washington stacks in for so much cheaper and so much easier, and it's some pretty strong leverage. So I'm personally leaning towards that. I want to talk about the 49ers. Quick pause. Gabe Davis. Have to mention him. He got cheaper. He's either going to score 0 or 25. I don't have any idea which one it's going to be today. One of the two is going to happen, though. I think it's a pretty good spot for him. I think if you're playing Allen, he makes for a good fit in tournaments to play, right? You don't need to go up and play an overpriced Diggs, who I do like Diggs today. But you can get Gabe Davis. Like I said, no one knows. Gabe doesn't know. Josh Allen doesn't know. Gabe's parents don't know. The football gods don't know what Gabe Davis is going to do today. But he has, 100 yard, 2 touchdown upside at 5,500 and very low ownership. And is a little cheaper, right, to be able to get Josh Allen if you want him. So we would be remiss if we didn't mention Gabe. But I do want to talk about this 49ers game, because this is the afternoon game that I feel like, everybody's down for CMC. The ownership is a little higher, you're seeing here, but similar to what you said about Diggs ownership, I kind of feel that way about the Niners wide receivers. We're projecting them, anywhere from 8 to 12 or whatever % for all these guys. I'm taking under. I think the field's just going to say, I don't know what to do with Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle. I don't want to pay up for Kittle. And so I'm just going to play CMC in this matchup. I actually don't know that people are going to, I know we see Purdy at 12%. I don't know. I don't know if Purdy will get to 12%. And we have the Niners, who are like a stone cold lock to score like 35 plus points in this game. And everyone besides CMC, I think, makes for a decent tournament play. And there are bringbacks. If you don't have to play a bringback on the Arizona side, but if you want to, there are some bringbacks. What do you think about the Niners Cardinals game?
I mean, I think the CMC thing, we're looking at him on screen right now, and we can see that he's projected 29 to 30% ownership, which, of course, he's CMC. He's playing Arizona. You mentioned it earlier. He dropped 50 on them. I think people are, and he's under 10K. Like back in the day, back in my day when Ted Ginn was scoring touchdowns, CMC would have been $11,000 on DraftKings. It feels like a severe underpricing in this spot. So I think everyone's going to be trying their best to smash Christian McCaffrey in for that reason as well as all the reasons that you outlined. I'm a Debo guy at heart with the 49ers, but I do think it is the Brandon Ayuk day, right? I think we need to get back to these Brandon Ayuk deep shots. But I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the first 2 quarters, right? I think you're going to know your Ayuk stuff by halftime. So I do like Ayuk at 7.2K. I think that ownership's a little too high on him as well. I think we're going to see him come in a little low owned. The best play is the one you outlined from the 49ers. It's George Kittle. Like, if you can spend up for George Kittle and you actually get the George Kittle day, no one's going to be spending 5.8K. Nope. I think everyone's looking to spend down at tight end today. So if George Kittle smashes for 2 touchdowns today and just breaks the slate at that spot, you could be running laps against the field. So I do want to try to get myself a team with Kittle. I know I will have CMC. I know for sure. I want to have Ayuk, but I think I'm going to make it a point to get Kittle on one of my teams today for sure.
One of the funny things about this game is I really like Kittle. I agree with you. There's 2 funny things that stand out. I love Trey McBride. I think Trey McBride is going to be an absolute superstar in this league. He's really good at the game. He has a monster target share for a tight end, albeit Robbie said bad take on Kittle not smashing. I mean, it's definitely possible that Kittle doesn't smash. It's technically possible that nobody, we can flip that coin on just about every player. But right. Trey McBride is 5,200 on the Cardinals, who are, probably not going to score very many points. George Kittle, one of the highest ceiling tight ends in the entire NFL. One of the only tight ends, if you watched Sam Laporta last night catch 3 touchdowns, there's another tight end who has 3 touchdowns on this season. It ain't Travis Kelce. It ain't Mark Andrews. It's George Kittle, not TJ Hawkinson, right? None of these other guys. George Kittle has the 3 tight end game, 30 plus fantasy points. That kind of, right? I love those kind of players. Why do I mention Gabe, right? And guys like that. It's like Jalen Hyatt. Why do we talk about that? Fully aware that they can have a bad game. But when they have a good game, right? What happens when that guy hits? What do you win when that guy comes through, right? What do you win when Wan'Dale Robinson comes through? 15 fantasy points. Congratulations. You got an okay game. What do you win when Gabe Davis hits? What do you win when George Kittle hits? Like all the monies, all of it. Like you get 40 from your tight end. And he's like the same price as Trey McBride, and people are going to play Trey McBride on the Cardinals, which is pretty crazy. I just think it's funny. Sometimes we get, the situations where the teams are playing for the second time, right? Divisional game. They're playing for the second time, and people will latch on to what happened, right? This is not the same thing, but we've been hearing the Derrick Henry versus the Texans thing, for a decade or whatever, right? And people will latch onto that. It'll artificially inflate the ownership of that player or that stack or whatever. In this game, CMC is getting the ownership, but it was Brandon Ayuk as the wide receiver who smashed. And you know who it was on the other side for the Cardinals, who nobody's playing, who people have been asking about all these punt wide receivers and stuff, and who I like? Michael Wilson, rookie wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, is back this week. At 3,300, he projects for 8 points. That's not like amazing, but it's like also not bad. He went 7 for 76 with 2 touchdowns against the 49ers in the first game. Like I said, is back this week. Should play like every snap on the outside. RIP Greg Dortch is probably going to go away. Him or Rondale, one of them is going to go away. And like, you want to talk about leverage, if people are going to play McBride and people are going to play CMC, like if the Niners are going to get pushed, the Cardinals got to score some points. And so that's one of those where like, I don't feel like the Bijan with the Panthers bring back. You don't have to force that, I don't think, because like Bijan can be Bijan whether the Panthers push back or not. I kind of feel like with the 49ers, if these guys are really going to smash, like not just like have a good game, but like really, really smash, I do want the Cardinals to push back a little bit. And so Michael Wilson, to me, as one of the cheap wide receivers on this slate, looks really, really good. Like he actually projects well, like for a cheap wide receiver, and he's 2% because everybody's like, Saints, Dolphins, they see Packers, they see all these other guys, and we're just ignoring the Cardinals back here. And so I'm pretty in on Michael Wilson. Anything else on this game?
Just real quick, because it kind of kills me. We have people in the chat that are talking about like Kittle was bad against the Cardinals last time, and fair. He was bad against the Cardinals last time. Do you want to know what he did the game before that? 2 touchdowns. The game before that, 2 touchdowns. The game before that, 1 touchdown, but 101 yards. So that's the historical data of him against the Cardinals. So which game is actually the outlier, right? Like it's
the one that fits my narrative,
right? Of course. So I think that Kittle's live for some of the reasons you just laid out, though. Like the Cardinals might be able to push back a little bit more than they did last time, which leaves Kittle open to actually a better pathway instead of just running the ball with McCaffrey and making sure McCaffrey smashes the entire game.
Right. Last game, spoiler, it was Josh Dobbs at quarterback, who he was playing very well for the Cardinals, but I think we've seen got benched for Nick Mullins on a team pushing for the playoffs. So maybe Josh Dobbs was just pulling a little voodoo magic back then. But I think one thing we haven't talked a lot about is kind of the late swap and the afternoon slate and all that kind of stuff. Just quickly, I don't have like a lot to mention on that, but I think it's been made fairly clear that these 3 afternoon games, assuming the weather isn't just like totally awful in Buffalo, are just by far the 3 best games. Like we like some of these guys in these early games, right? We
lost Eric. That is alarming. So he's talking about the late swap games for sure are the better of the games. And I think that you can look at stuff like what is happening?
Sosa both kept clicking to add me to the stream. I apologize. sometimes your fingers are moving a little too quickly. I hit the back button on X. Yeah, I know. First time listener or long time listener, first time caller. I apologize for cutting you off and leaving everybody here. Jeffrey, there he is. He's back. I'm sure people want to hear more Michael Wilson, AT Perry takes, but just to wrap the late swap thing, I'll let you kind of continue. But like, I just want to be thoughtful about it. Like jamming Giants, Saints, Packers, backup Dolphins wide receivers, just because like it theoretically opened up value. I kind of want to make sure I'm taking a step back and taking a macro approach to the slate too, and just being like, yeah, like most of the points are going to come in the afternoon, just because the best point per dollar plays, because other players are out, are early, doesn't mean I want to like dedicate like 6 of my lineup spots to the early games.
Yeah, but I think there's like certain spots you can be cognizant of that you can late swap to in the afternoon. And I think the Kittle one is like one of the big ones, because I know people want to play Kyron. They want to play CMC, but if you're running behind a little bit, this is the perfect spot to late swap, where you swap your tight end off of a Logan Thomas or something like that if you have these Howell stacks, to play George Kittle at a lower ownership with higher upside and reduce the price of one of your running backs to one of the cheaper ones. So those are the spots I would be looking for today. I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, let's make sure that I can swap to this guy today.
Yeah.
But if I have that available, I'm going to be looking at, 3 o'clock, 3:15. Is this lineup alive or is this lineup dead? Do I have the right construction here, or am I just dead in the water because I'm too selfish or too stubborn to swap off of CMC at 30% ownership when I'm at the bottom third of the field?
Right, exactly. And that's why I do like leaving like both my stacks and say, 2 running back spots open or something, because you have, if you hit on a couple of the early things, so like last week, if you had hit on, let's just say I'm making up random names, on David Njoku or Evan Ingram or DJ Moore or whatever on the early slate, and you left it open, you can just, now I'm, using it as say that happened in the early slate today, you hit on whatever. We like Jalen Hyatt, right? Jalen Hyatt catches 2 long touchdowns. You hit on Aaron Jones or whatever, some contrarian play, Bijan, etc. You hit on that, and now you're looking to the afternoon, and you're like, yeah, I can just play CMC and just play CMC and Kyron. Maybe a Washington wide receiver, whatever. If the weather's fine in Buffalo, if there's a little piece in there that I want to get to, like I can just play the best. I can play the hits. When you just like jam a bunch of guys in the early slate and you leave yourself like Kyron and CMC, like there's nothing you can do if they fail. And on the flip side, if they fail and you have spots open, you're like, all right, this is going to be Purdy, Ayuk, Kittle with Hollywood and Michael Wilson, and just like, please, Lord, let this game shoot out, right? Or Howell double stacks with Kupp or Puka, or something like that. Like, I can swap off of those chalky guys, right? Then I'm playing James Cook and whatever, I'm playing the running backs that people aren't playing, James Conner, playing the Jameses, yeah, exactly. But like, if you're drawing dead, right? You faded Rashid Shaheed. He goes for 40. You're drawing dead in the afternoon. Don't play Kyron and CMC, and all the chalky guys. We got to find a way to make up ground and still somehow maybe profit on this slate. But that goes both ways. And so I think this is just a really good slate to make sure I'm really, really like cognizant of that. Like this, I don't know if I'll be playing Sam Howell and Terry McLaurin or Antonio Gibson or Kyron Williams. I don't know yet, because it's going to depend upon what my handful of guys in the early slate do.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the early slate, I do think we forgot one game that I just want to touch on really fast, and that's the Houston-Tennessee game. I know we kind of like briefly hit on Derrick Henry, and I do think he's a good play. I want Hopkins in a lineup today. I just always think Hopkins feels like the ultimate revenge guy, right? I know people are going to Chig, but Hopkins for me at 6.2K against Houston. I mean, Levis dials in on him already, right? I think the price is perfect. I think the matchup is perfect. I think I'm going to make sure I have some Hopkins today. I'm not sure if you're in on that.
Not particularly, but I do see it. This game is just disgusting. Like, oh my God, this game is disgusting. At least the weather is nice, but like Case Keenum throwing to Noah Brown and Robert Woods and Xavier Hutchinson just doesn't feel very fun to me. I think Nuke is my favorite play, and Nuke and Derrick Henry. I'm just being totally honest. I'm not playing Derrick Henry, but like I've been considering it for much of the week.
He runs for 500 yards every time he plays Houston.
Yeah, don't you know? Yeah, exactly. This is a guaranteed 40 ball. He's the same player he was when he was 25. The Texans are the same defense they were, when they were picking first overall every single year. Nothing has changed, obviously. So just lock in Derrick Henry. But it's tough for me to use roster spots on this game. I do think, as you said, like Nuke is definitely going up to Vrabel or whatever before the game and being like, you're going to get me one, right? Like you're going to get, like, I feel very confident he's going to get his chances to score. I do feel that. But this game, I prefer the Titans defense. I know that's lazy, and I know other people are going to play them. But I just kind of prefer the Titans defense. Some questions before we start to get out of here. If you have more questions, bring them. This is perfect question time. I don't think we have. We've hit on not perfectly everything. We didn't talk about Zeke. Let's do that. Zeke Chiefs. Zeke Chiefs. What are you doing with unless you're? I say Zeke. I'll say Patriots. I assume you're not playing Pop Douglas or Devontae Parker. Maybe you are, but that's the kind of the last thing we need to make sure to talk about.
Zeke's the easiest fade of a tournament slate, right? I mean, you want to play him in cash, whatever, but like in the tournament space, easiest fade there is, in my opinion.
There's so many good running backs. He needed everything to go right last week to score 27 DraftKings points. That's great. I'll take 5,800 for 27 DraftKings points. He basically was the full workhorse the week before against the Chargers, who just gave up 70 to the Raiders. He was the workhorse. He didn't do shit. He scored like 12 fantasy points against the Chargers as the workhorse. So like, I feel like I know the volume is there, but we're a little bit attached to the big game where he caught 7 for 72 and a touchdown last week. This is still like nobody's playing Chuba, and he's on a horrible offense in a like neutral matchup. And Zeke is like, not that the volume projections are very similar. I know Miles Sanders is there, right? There's nuance to all this, but the Panthers are horrible on offense and the Patriots are horrible on offense. Like I just, if he was like moderately owned, we would be having a different discussion, but like, you're going to play like all these running backs, whether you believe the Derrick Henry thing or not, like Derrick Henry, Bijan, CMC, right? Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Rashad White, like Antonio Gibson, like there's like 20 running backs we can play, and you're going to play like 50% owned Zeke. Like, I know the Chiefs defense has gotten worse, but they're not that bad. I just can't, dude. I can't play Zeke.
Yeah, I'm not playing Zeke either. Some of the other questions in chat, we got Jeffrey saying one stack I haven't heard a lot about is the Chicago Bears stack. Anything on this one, especially with 4% more? I've already outlined it. Justin Fields to DJ Moore is my favorite stack for tournaments this week. I'm making sure I smash one of those in to a single entry, and I think it's going to take down the millie personally.
For Luis, top 3 tight ends specifically on FanDuel.
No price restriction. I mean, if we're doing that, it's Kelsey, McBride, and Ferguson or something like that. I mean, like we're just going to take the top guys that are projecting a ton of points. The nuance is price on that.
I am going to go for tournaments, of course, Luis. I know you're playing tournaments generally. Kittle, Taysom, Cole Turner. Have some fun. Win the Sunday Million. Cole Turner touchdown. Cole Turner
keep trying to make fetch happen.
Cole Turner, absolutely, dude. This is what I do. It's week 15. Have you not watched the show before? Fetch. You should nickname me Fetch. That's all I do is play the shitty plays, and they every time they pan out twice a year, right? Desmond Ridder has 2 big games a season. I lose every other week, but I get to enjoy those good weeks. But I do think tight end makes for. I really like getting off the board. I'm obviously making a super duper galaxy brain, large field millie whatever play with the Washington thing. But also, what I will say is that's an opportunity. I think it could also be Logan Thomas, a late swap opportunity. Like, dude, you're buried. Let's get funky at tight end. And I do just think tight end this week's really good. Look, I like Tucker Kraft. I bet his receiving yardage overs, but I'll just he can get 34 receiving yards and cash the overs. Like, you need a lot for him to win you tournaments. So I like some of those guys. Zappy to Hunter Henry. You can play Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry makes for a pretty good leverage play, actually, at tight end. Nobody's playing him, and the guy's going to catch 2 touchdowns every week, apparently, for that. I'm not going to say your name, Jenkins, but will Devin Singletary be entering Checkdown Central today? I mean, it's possible, but you'd have to catch a lot of checkdowns to make Devin Singletary usable today. So that one's not for me. Before we start to pass it over to these two crunch time fine gentlemen, Rob and I have to give our hot takes, flag plants, bold calls, whatever the heck you want to call it today. That's going to win everybody all of the money. I'm going to kick it to Rob first. What do you got to do in tournaments to win?
So I'm just going to hit on it one more time, just because it's the end of the show. Justin Fields to DJ Moore takes down the Millie today.
I love it. I'm really torn, actually, on what to do here. I'm just going to go to Sam Howell. We're gonna cheat, but it is Sam Howell and one of the 2 wide receivers that haven't done shit for 2, maybe both. Maybe you want to play both of them and load up on the Rams game, but the Commanders are going to come out slinging. I think the Rams are an advantageous matchup, and for whatever reason, I thought coming into the week Sam Howell would be like 1,000,000,000% owned on this slate, and he's owned, but he's not mega owned, and I think it's because no one wants to click Terry McLaurin. No one wants to click Jahan Dotson, right? Neither do I. But the upside on both of those guys is like 25, 30 points at really good prices. And so it's Howell, Dotson, or Howell, McLaurin stacks. Get your Kyron, get your Puka, get your Cup, whatever around them. That's the winner for me today. I like DJ Moore as well.
Let's go the reverse. I think the 2 worst picks for tournaments are Stafford and Zeke. I
agree.
Those are the 2 worst picks today for tournament teams. What Stafford has to do in order to actually win you a tournament is, and he can do it if he's going to do it against anyone. It's Washington, but but I just think that with the ownership and stuff, it's just not worth it.
Here's where you're wrong. He's going to do that. And that's why my hot take to win tournaments is I've seen a lot of people talking about a little Stafford stack, a little bit of a double stack. Not a triple stack, not a quadruple stack. I'm playing 6
Jesus Christ.
Los Angeles Rams in my main single entry lineup today. I'm stacking Stafford with Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyler Higbee. So that when they put up 50 points and Stafford has 5 touchdowns, I'm winning a tournament.
TJ, what was your Michael Thomas ownership in best ball?
Like 30%.
All right. Just checking.
I'm doing great. I got so many teams advancing, and I'm cooking right now. I got a King of the Desert seat coming. We're cooking in best ball. We had a great advance percentage.
Yeah.
TJ, I love you. I really do want to hear what Andre has to say, but first I would just ask that you mix in a water on Sunday mornings every once in a while. That would be good for your health, everybody's health, and all that. 6 Rams. Okay. I mean, I do like all the Rams, so I appreciate your hot takes. Andre, can you bring some sanity to this show? We've been talking about playing every roster spot with the Rams. Well, DraftKings a lot. I think you got to play someone else, DJ. You got to play a different team at some point. And Cole Turner and DJ Moore and all this. Will you bring some sanity to the show, Andre?
Yeah, I can bring a little bit of sanity. My hot take is I think Brock Purdy does it again and ends up winning someone the Millie Maker. He's just too efficient of a quarterback. But Matthew Stafford also is a very good play today. And I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up 5 touchdowns.
All right, we're going to battle. GPP Final Takes versus Crunch Time. The Matthew Stafford duel is going to happen here. But thank you guys for joining us. We're going to get out of here. Good luck to you here in Week 15. If you got best ball sweats, obviously Rob and I are biased. Enjoy them. Come hang out in the Spike Week Discord if you're sweating these teams. If you're tilting Tyreek Hill being out, come hang out with us. And these guys got you all covered. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Rob trying to clown me for best ball as if my highest owned player is not Alvin Kamara in all of best ball from like the 8th, 9th, and 10th round when he was going there. So we're doing pretty good in those streets. But it's time for some DFS. It's FanDuel sponsored Crunch Time. I'm your host TJ Zwarych, joined by my guy Drizzy Dre. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. Hanging in there, ready for the slate. I think it's a great one. And I'm just locked in. I'm hopefully ready to get some guys some good picks to come in second place behind me in the tournaments that I'm in.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to have 6 Rams today in your lineup if you want to come in first place. So, good luck coming in second to me today. But we're gonna take some QQs first from the RotoGrinders Discord live stream chat. After that, we are gonna be going to the YouTube chat. So make sure you're smashing that like button for us and get it up as high as possible. We got like 700 people in here right now. So we got to get these likes way up. The people before us, they gave us some amazing football content, but they did not remind the viewers to hit the like button. So we got to keep smashing that like button to get this way up here to battle the YouTube algorithm. It does wonders for us. So keep smashing that like button, and we'll start things off talking a little position by position. And, of course, going through some things on FanDuel, because Crunch Time is presented by FanDuel. Bet $5 in any money line, get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So before we even start things off with position by position or even stacks, the 2 big breaking news things that happened in the previous shows are Chris Olave is going to be out and Tyreek Hill is going to be out. How does that impact your plans? We got 2 Saints fans on the show. So without Chris Olave, first things, let's start there. What are we doing with it? I love Kamara for tournaments, and I absolutely love Taysom Hill for tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely do love Alvin Kamara returns. I'm trying to actually get as much exposure to him as I possibly can here. I think he's just a great play overall too. And you said who else did you say you like?
Taysom.
Taysom. I do like Taysom too. I'm a little bit down on Taysom just because. Sorry, I do have a little bit of Taysom too. It's just that he's. With Dennis Allen, the way that they play him on offense is not the way I like. So honestly, I'm just gonna probably be a little bit at the field, a little bit above it with them. But looking forward to getting some exposure to them as much as I possibly can, because they're gonna be the ones to hopefully put the rock in the end zone today. But we'll see, because I know also Juwan Johnson is back, so that does play a factor as well to my decision.
Tyreek Hill got in. We came back into the game last week after leaving with injury. He is out this week. I think a lot of us expected him to play. How are you going to handle the Dolphins situation? Are you going to be looking to go cheap with some of these cheap receivers on the Dolphins, stack up a low-owned Tua? Or are you just thinking, like me, the Jets defense is my favorite defense on the slate now?
I am just gonna go with I'm just gonna honestly fade them. Like I might just play maybe a little bit of running game, but I'm definitely playing more so the Jets defense. I'm getting a lot of them. I don't want to go Waddle and have him, because Waddle's gonna be primarily guarded by Sauce, so I don't want to take that chance with him. So to me, I think that's just perfect to just not play him today, and be honestly kind of under on the Dolphins, which is kind of weird saying just being under on them, but I think this is a good time to be on them.
All right, let's start going into things position by position. But first up, I want to talk stacks. This can kind of go into QBs here. We can kind of transition stacks into QBs. But how many lineups are you planning on playing today? And then who are the main stacks you're targeting?
I am playing about right now. I'm definitely having about 60 lineups that I'm playing today. I'm gonna try to get a lot of Matt Stafford, but I also do want to get a good amount of Brock Purdy is my second and most exposed, and then Sam Howell. But I do have a couple surprises that I'm trying to be over the field on that I think no one's going to be on that could have a good game in a shootout besides guys like Jordan Love. and Josh Allen, who I think guys are going to be playing a good amount of today. I like Case Keenum, and I do like Will Levis. I like that game. That game definitely has seen the Houston defense been the worst defense in the past 5 weeks, going over, producing a lot of top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. So I'm going to take a chance with some Will Levis here and see what he can do. I know it might be a little bit unorthodox to do that, but in GPPs you got to get different, especially to win $1 million here, especially on this type of slate. So I think you can pair Will Levis with Derrick Henry, and you pair him with DeAndre Hopkins. I think that's a combination for success right there. And then you can just build around it by making sure you do have a Ram and a 49ers in your lineup as well.
Yeah, I set a rule that I want to make. I have at least one Ram in every single lineup I build today. I hand built I have one main lineup, and then I hand built about 5 or 6 others, and then I ran 150 as well. Whether you're building one lineup or lots, though, check out SimLabs, because you can use SimLabs to generate DFS lineups through the power of simulation. It combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences. In just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. Be sure to check out the link in our description for more info. All Combo and NFL Premium subscribers have access to SimLabs right now, so make sure you're checking that out. And then we also have the brand new Props and Pick'em package. The experts at the RotoGrinders projections team take our premium stats and comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. Check out the link in the description for more info. Do you have any props or DFS pick'em plays over at something like Prize Picks or Underdog today? Because I know you're a guy that usually likes to put $1 million parlay or something like that together.
Not today. I didn't have time to. I was just focused on the DFS. So I've been close a lot lately with the DFS. So I've just been focusing heavy on that lately. But I'm gonna probably next week get back to the props.
Yes, I like it. I was absolutely devastated. I had a bunch of parlays throughout the weekend where a lot of them hinged on Gardner Minshew over 230 passing yards, and he had 185 in the first half. And I was like, oh, we're cooking. This is going to crush easily. And then they threw like 3 total passes in the second half yesterday, and it was a 1-point game at half. Devastating stuff. But I did get some of those, like they got the new Demons and Goblins picks over on Prize Picks right now. And I did get a few DFS pick'em plays with instead of the 230 on him, I got it at the 199. And so he cleared that nice and easily. And so we do still have a few nice Prize Picks cards going over there. But let's now talk stacks. Which teams are you targeting today, and like what's your QB ownership exposure? Because I'm going heavily overweight on the Rams. Like I said, yes, Stafford's going to be chalky, but my thought process is everybody's going to play either Kupp or Nakua, maybe both. Well, I'm maybe Demarcus Robinson instead of one of those guys. Well, I'm going to play triple stacks, quadruple stacks, quintuple stacks. I'm getting Kyron Williams, I'm getting Kupp, I'm getting Nakua, I'm getting Higbee, I'm getting Robinson. All of these different guys and variations, and a couple lineups with them all together. Then for me, it's the other side of this game. Sam Howell. I like Jordan Love today. I'm worried about the lack of Christian Watson. Like, he just looked so bad last week. Love had wide open receivers, and he was just missing them. Like, he was just so bad. But he's still my third highest owned quarterback, tied with the guy you mentioned earlier, Brock Purdy. And then I'm getting to some Case Keenum, who you mentioned too, just because he's 4K. He's so cheap. We have guys we want to spend up for on this slate, and he allows me to do so. So Case Keenum is somebody I'm getting a lot of, and then I have sprinkles of Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Tommy DeVito. I'm fading the expensive quarterbacks today. I have no Josh Allen. I have no Dak Prescott. It terrifies me, but I'm still going to get some exposure to the pass catchers and the playmakers in those games, but I'm fading the quarterbacks because they're expensive. My guy Jean-Sébastien Roy in chat. Bonjour, mon ami. Thank you for tuning in. Let's make sure all the new people tuning in now for Crunch Time. Smash that like button for us. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I know you like Purdy. Who are some of the other stacks and quarterbacks you're targeting today?
Sam Howell, I think it's another good option. I understand that, it's tough not a lot of people are picking these Washington receivers. But I think you could go with a guy like Curtis Samuel, who's getting a lot of targets. Logan Thomas, who's the best person I think you should go with in that group of receivers, including the tight end, and obviously plays tight end. He's to me the best option to go with since the Rams have been like giving up a lot to tight end more recently in the week. So I like that option as well, making sure you include him in every single lineup and just pairing him with either the running back in Gibson or pairing him with McLaurin or Samuel or Curtis Samuel. Those are like the two options I really, really love a lot today. And then I do like getting to Matt Stafford, like we've talked about plenty of times. I have like 50% of them. I'm trying my best to not be at that much, but it's kind of hard when you know the matchup is just so good for him. So honestly, I think it's just a perfect storm. And I just hope that he continues to throw those passing touchdowns that he has, because it shows that the positive regression has come to fruition this year so far. I mean, come to fruition the past few weeks. So I think that will continue to happen for him here. And then, like I mentioned before, Will Levis. Will Levis showed me some last game when he played against Miami. If he's willing to run the ball and be a little bit of a gunslinger and pass ball like he did before, I think he is a great option, especially pairing him with D-Hop and also with Derrick Henry.
Speaking of, before we get too far away from this, I mean, I guess we could talk about it at receivers too, but since we're talking about the Rams, we both love Stafford. In terms of props and pick'em stuff today, my favorite play on the entire board is over 70.5, 69.5, 68.5. You can get any variations depending on where you look for Puka Nacua today. That is my favorite by far. I love Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford. And so that's my favorite prop or pick 'em on the board. If you want to get that in, it's 70.5 on our sponsor FanDuel, 69.5 on DraftKings, 68.5 a few other places. I don't care. I think he's going to have 100 if you want to 100 plus if you want to hit some alt lines as well. But that'll do it for the quarterback position. Let's pivot over to running back. I was thinking we could go FanDuel, then DraftKings today. And let's still do that. Let's still do that because we got enough time. It's 30 minutes to lock. I was going to say for the most part, it's pretty similar. Like the prices are different, but the ratios are very similar this week. But we got a couple guys like Kyron Williams, who on FanDuel, he's still a great play, but he's only $900 less than Christian McCaffrey, where it's almost a 2K difference on DraftKings. So let's start specifically on FanDuel here for the running back position. Who are you prioritizing? Who are your top plays here?
On FanDuel, let me pull up FanDuel real quick because I have DK up right now currently. But I bringing this into Kyron Williams, I think he's just too expensive over there. I think he's about 9,300 if I'm correct.
96
on FanDuel, 96. So that's a little bit too pricey for me. Granted, he can still crush in this, but I'm trying to think of it from a relative perspective. Is he going to be able to give me a ceiling game, which he can definitely against Washington? But I'd rather play a guy like Christian McCaffrey if it comes down to playing those guys in that upper echelon there. And I also rather take Alvin Kamara, who, as we've been talking about before, is in a little bit of a smash spot as far as volume wise, since without a Chris Olave, and he's pretty much should be the number one option on this team here. And get the ball out the backfield and dump off situations as well, and maybe split out wide. So I do like him a lot. Derrick Henry, someone I think at 8.3 is it's a pretty good play here on FanDuel. As long as he's scoring touchdowns, I think he's fine. Saquon Barkley is a nice DPP option. As you know, he does everything for the Giants as well, so he's not someone to just fade, I think, on any given slate. This range where you have James Cook and Tony Pollard, I think they're two good options. And I don't even mind a little bit of Brees Hall today, but a very, very little, but nothing too crazy here. Other than that, I'm going to stick with everything else is just going to be probably riding a little bit with the chalk, but trying to maybe get a little bit different. I don't mind Gibson today at 56 on FanDuel. I think he's a good option here. If you do want to go with Zeke, I like getting at the field with Zeke. I think that's a hot topic today. And obviously all week since he's been getting the ownership and the amount of work he's been receiving. I like just getting at the field with him though.
I think I forgot to mention the cash quarterback play on both sites really, but it's Matt Stafford. You're playing Matt Stafford in cash, both in FanDuel and on DraftKings this week. Most likely there are a couple other options maybe you could go with, but to me, that's my favorite one by a fairly wide margin. At the running back position on FanDuel, because they're so close in price, I do prioritize Christian McCaffrey over Kyron Williams, but I still think they're both phenomenal plays today. I think for cash, the top two priorities would be McCaffrey and Ezekiel Elliott. If you like your lineup way better with Kyron Williams instead of McCaffrey, or you get both, I think that's fine. But I would prioritize McCaffrey at those closer price tags for tournaments. I think the best running back play on the slate, who's cheaper than both of them, is Alvin Kamara, coming in at single-digit ownership. We're currently projecting him for 6%. I did a refresh, and that went up a bit to 6.7%. But still, Alvin Kamara at single-digit ownership, I think is fantastic. And then in that same game, Saquon Barkley has a really nice FanDuel price, 7,800. So I like him for tournaments quite a bit as well. Let's take it over to the wide receiver position. Rashee Rice is popping a little bit, 6,500. I talked about I love Puka Nacua today. Who are your priorities in tournaments at the wide receiver position?
In wide receiver, obviously I'm gonna have a Ram, which is mainly gonna be Puka or Robinson in every single lineup on FanDuel, especially. I think it's good. I see both can catch touchdowns. But for the 49ers, I think you have to have one of them. You have to have at least one of them. So they both are good in this situation and fare great and excellent against the Arizona defense as far as Debo and Ayuk. I would just, it's kind of hard to pick one of them. I probably would just split the ownership with it and be over the field on the one that's lesser owned, honestly. But I also do like 8,300 Mike Evans. I think he's not getting talked about enough here. I think he's in a fantastic matchup. I know Green Bay is a little bit of a tough secondary here, but I think you can see him have a monster game here. And he looks to obviously have a great rapport with Baker Mayfield. So I don't mind that as at all. CeeDee Lamb and Stephon Diggs are good, but I think that prices are a little bit too expensive, and they have to have ceiling games, in my opinion, on the slate, but it's good for tournaments. DJ Moore is also a fantastic option that I like to get to. I mentioned D-Hop earlier before. Same thing applies here. Garrett Wilson, I would be over the field on him, coming at since he's going to get peppered with a lot of targets here today. You mentioned Rashee Rice. I think he's good. Noah Brown is a fantastic play. The Reed and Dobbs as well. Those are just the main receivers I would be trying to get to today in a lot of my lineups here. Also, I don't want to forget about Wan'Dale Robinson, who seems to have a good rapport with DeVito. I think he's a fantastic play today too.
Slot receivers also do torch the New Orleans Saints on a regular basis. It's really just about whether or not how involved Darren Waller is going to be. Maybe if he ends up stealing some of those slot routes from Wan'Dale Robinson this week. But I like that call as a cheap play as well. You can also get him for his receptions prop is 3.5 receptions. I really like the over on that one. In terms of cash today, I find it interesting how like on DraftKings, it's kind of either like some spend up over 7K options here at receiver, or it's the ones below 5K. The mid range isn't quite as strong, except there are still some strong tournament options, but it's really just kind of going up or going down. But on FanDuel, the mid range is a lot stronger. And so for cash, I like going to guys like Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed. I think those are the top two options for cash today, but I also love Puka Nacua, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel is fine instead. Terry McLaurin is nice and cheap. And then if you're on the opposite side of me and you think like, no, Miami is still Miami, even without Tyreek Hill, that was just a bad game last week. I want to play Jalen Waddle at 7K. I wouldn't fault you. I'm just on the side of the Jets defense of that one, but that is a nice price tag for him. I just like the Sauce Gardner side a little bit more. Let's pivot to tight ends here. At cash, I think you play Trey McBride at 6,600. He's cheaper than Taysom. He's cheaper than Travis Kelce. And he's one of the very best tight ends in the league. And I don't think people seem to realize that yet. But I think your two options from a cash game perspective are a pay up to Trey McBride or a trade down to Tucker Kraft. It's 1A and 1B for those. It just depends on your lineup build. That's where you're going for cash. For tournaments, I like mixing in some Tyler Higbee. We love the Rams offense. He's going completely overlooked today. Chigakongwo is a nice cheap option. I don't mind either. And then Travis Kelce's FanDuel price is very strong. So if you find yourself going up to Travis Kelce for cash or even a single entry tournament, I don't think that's wrong by any means, but he would probably be my third option behind Trey McBride and Tucker Kraft. How about you? Who you liking today for tournaments, Trey?
For tournaments for tight end, I like David Njoku. I think he has been playing really, really well. He's been getting a lot of targets with Flacco, so I think he's a good off the board option. Logan Thomas as well, I do like. Dalton Schultz, I think, is another great option too that you can play here and pair him with Case Keenum. I probably would, if I'm running Schultz though, I might run him with Case Keenum though. I like Njoku as a standalone. I like George Kittle as a standalone as well, and Logan Thomas also as a standalone. Everyone's going to be probably on Tucker Kraft, which is fine, and Jacob Kongwu, but which is fine. I think that they're great plays. Trey McBride is an excellent play too as well. But I'm going to try to be at the field with them and just mix it up a little bit because tight end I think today is actually kind of deep, but in a way for me, like there's a lot of tournament guys I think you can go with today that I can see have pretty good games. I also do like Darren Waller. I know it's his first game back. He might not play a lot of snaps, but I think he can. But across that middle of the field, like you spoke about before, he can have a good game here. And I do like Taysom Hill, obviously a decent amount, a good amount here.
If Darren Waller was priced like Darren Waller in his first game back, I would have no interest. But he's not. He's priced like one of the cheapest starting tight ends on the slate. And so he's, I think, a very interesting option for tournaments. I like that call. Taysom, like it as well. More of a fan on DraftKings where he's a little bit cheaper. Let's quickly touch on defense here and then pivot over to DraftKings. Make sure we save lots of time for QQs. Still 19 minutes for locks, so we're good till lock. So good for time. And still, make sure we're smashing the like button on YouTube. I will hit your questions there after I do the Discord RotoGrinders live stream chat, which is, of course, free to join. Check out rotogrinders.com/Discord for more. Defense position. I always just like going as cheap as possible. So my favorite defense by far on this slate is the New York Jets, now facing Miami without Tyreek Hill. And then my next favorite is I kind of forgot. I'm always supposed to give cash game takes. Which is nobody told me this. This is just what I imposed in my head because there's only two of us. So somebody's got to do it. For cash games, I think Miami's fine. I think Panthers are fine. I think the Browns or the Saints are fine. They're picking up a lot of ownership, but there's so much variance in defense. I'm not playing those teams for tournaments. And I personally am also going to these teams for my cash / small field stuff. I like the Falcons in the upper price tier. They're my favorite up there. In the mid tier, my favorite is the Dallas Cowboys going up against Buffalo. Even if Buffalo score some points today, we know Josh Allen and that whole team likes to turn it over. And so Dallas defense, who's one of the top defenses at taking the ball away in the league, they might score a touchdown in this one. I love the Dallas defense of low ownership. And then down nice and cheap, it's the New York Jets by a fairly wide margin. I also like the Giants as a cheap option today. We like Kamara, we like Rashid Shaheed, we like Taysom Hill, but it's still Derek Carr, who we don't like under center, and this team is banged up without their two top receivers. I think the New York Giants defense is a phenomenal option for tournaments today as well. Any other teams I didn't mention that you like a defense?
No, you pretty much named them all, man. Those are all the teams I would just honestly run with that defense today. Not getting any different. I think we think alike, so I'm not surprised at all when you mentioned all the teams you did for defense.
Pivoting it over to DraftKings here. Let's quickly go over stacks once again and quarterbacks, and then we will pivot it to the position by position quick and make sure we got time for QQs. The Ram stack is what I'm going heavily overweight on. If you joined late, you didn't catch it off the bat, I'm going heavy Rams. Yes, Matthew Stafford's going to be chalky, but I'm not playing him with one receiver. I'm not playing him with two receivers. I'm playing him with at least three. So Puka, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Demarcus Robinson, Kyron Williams. I'm okay playing all five of those players in a lineup and I'm playing at least 3 of them in a lineup. So that's where I'm going heavy. I like Washington and Howell. I like Green Bay and Love. I like the 49ers and Purdy. And then Case Keenum is a nice cheap option I think you can go to. He's 4K on DraftKings. And then Tommy DeVito, I got a sprinkle of. And I like Justin Fields and Patrick Mahomes as well. Rob talked about it a lot on the last show, a little Fields to Moore skinny stack. I think that's a great play in tournaments today. Any other stacks I forgot to mention, or do you want to take it to running back? And once again, cash play QB, it's Matthew Stafford today.
No, I think you pretty much mentioned everything that I would go with here at quarterback. The only thing different I would say was, like I said, Will Levis, and I think you mentioned Case Keenum before. Those are the 2 guys that I would dabble in, especially with Case Keenum being at 4K here on DraftKings.
On DraftKings, there's a bigger price difference between Kyren Williams and Christian McCaffrey. They're not as close together as they are on FanDuel. And so like I said, I'm hand building a bunch of lineups. He's in all the lineups I hand built today, maybe except for one. And then I run 150 with lineup HQ as well. And Kyren Williams is in 68% today. He's a cash game lock. He's my favorite tournament play. I'm going to be overweight. After Kyren Williams, I think you're playing 3 running backs in cash today. And you're choosing 2 of these 3 players for cash. It's Antonio Gibson, Christian McCaffrey, and Ezekiel Elliott. There are other guys I really like in tournaments. Like I love some Bijan Robinson today, Alvin Kamara, Rashad White, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Chuba Hubbard, a little bit of James Cook and Saquon Barkley. Like all of those guys today. I even have a little bit of the Chiefs guys, Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But in a cash game, and I believe even in a single entry, you're probably choosing for sure Kyren Williams, 2 of the 3, Antonio Gibson, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott. Who are you liking for tournaments today?
For tournaments today, running back position, that one, sorry, I'm just pulling it up again because this way we have it set up now is kind of different from before. So tournaments-wise, Alvin Kamara, like I said, the late news is everyone's not going to be on him as much as it should be. So I'm going to get a lot of exposure to him, Derrick Henry as well. As far as guys to be like kind of like off the board a little bit here, I do kind of like James Cook and as well as Tony Pollard here, as well as I mentioned before on FanDuel. You can do the same thing here on DraftKings, especially with the pass catching ability here. I think that's good options here today. And I actually on DK do not mind a little bit of TJ Spears here for Tennessee, just to get a little bit different. Granted, he has to score an end zone. That's for like big field GPP tournaments. If you run like 1 in 50 lineups, I don't mind him today, and I don't even mind McKinnon. I'm trying to like be like I guess more what's what I'm looking for. Well, just minimize my pool as much as I possibly can, especially with the running back. So, I even though I do like those plays that you mentioned on DK, I'm just trying to slim them down because especially with a guy like Bijan Robinson, who I love as a player, but the workload it needs to pick up a little bit more for me, and I get afraid of him not doing what he's supposed to, getting in the end zone a lot.
Speaking of best ball, Tyjae Spears is second behind Alvin Kamara in terms of my running back exposure for best ball this year. So I don't mind getting to that call. But I'm not personally playing him, but I do just like him as a player in general. Let's take it over to the wide receiver position. Puka Nacua is my guy today. He's way too cheap on DraftKings. I have 44%. I like his over props. I like him on FanDuel. I love him on DraftKings. He's my top guy. Four of my top 5 receivers on this slate are from that game in terms of exposure for tournaments. So I got Nacua, Curtis Samuel, Demarcus Robinson, then it's Jaden Reed, then it's Cooper Kupp. So 5 guys all from this game. I also love from that same Packers game, Romeo Doubs, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk. All really strong options today. And then there are cheaper ones I like in tournaments, like getting to some Wan'Dale Robinson, getting to some Demario Douglas. I'm even playing a little bit of John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson alongside Noah Brown with my Case Keenum teams, just so I can spend up everywhere in those lineups without him. In terms of cash games, I think you're playing. I want to play Puka in cash today. I think Puka is a priority 1 for me in cash. Second from there, it's Jaden Reed. Those are the 2 receivers I'm making sure that I have in cash games, Puka Nacua and Jaden Reed. Your third, I think you have options, Rashee Rice, Demarcus Robinson, Rashid Shaheed, all of those guys, even Brandon Ayuk, all of those guys I think are totally fine in cash games today. It's really just Puka and even Curtis Samuel, I think, is fine. It's Puka and Jaden Reed are the 2 you need to have in cash. And the third, I think, is up for debate. Is just whatever fits your lineup. Who you liking today at receiver?
I like pretty much all those guys, but also I think a guy that we did not touch, that I did not touch on, that I forgot to touch on, that I think is a great option here. Hold on, let me pull him up real quick because I have to just go to it. So I want to make sure I have it. Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown. I think he's a good option today. Probably definitely gonna be single digit owned today, but him and McBride, you can run a little mini stack, and if you do like, goodness gracious, what is the quarterback name? We haven't. Goodness gracious. Goodness. Who's the quarterback for the Arizona quarterback? Goodness.
Kyler Murray. Right now.
Kyler Murray. I can picture in my head he's short, but I can't picture think of his name. But if you love Kyler Murray today, then honestly, I would definitely pair them 2 with him today for sure. Don't bother running like a guy like James Conner. I think that that's a mistake. But I think just playing with those 2 guys is a good option today as well. And I also do. You mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson. I think is a fantastic option. I also do like Rashid Rice, as you mentioned here as well too, and Mike Evans. I guess Keith Harper and Mike Evans. I think it's a good play. We also did mention Gabe Davis. What do you take on Gabe Davis? Like, I think that I know he hasn't been performing the best this year, but I think that he still can have a good game in this matchup.
I have 4% Gabe Davis, which is currently doubling the projected ownership that we have for him. So I don't mind Gabe Davis. I'm not getting to a lot of him, but I am getting technically over the field.
Okay, yeah. Just wanted to. I wasn't sure. Just wanted to kind of see about see how you guys felt about him, because I wasn't sure about that take. But I think that he is a fantastic play today. Someone that I think we can use to get different here in tournaments. But yeah, that's what I like at receiver besides the guys I mentioned before when we talked about it on FanDuel.
Tight end, once again, same as FanDuel, you're choosing between 2 players in cash. It's Trey McBride or Tucker Kraft. Going cheap or going mid-range. Trey McBride or Tucker Kraft. Trey McBride is still heavily underpriced over here on DraftKings, but Kraft is so cheap that he allows you to do some nice things with your lineup. For tournaments, I love Taysom Hill. He's my favorite on DraftKings. He's so cheap here. I'm getting to a lot of him. I'm riding the Eric Bimeford train and playing a little bit of Cole Turner. I see Kelly Crane ask the DK GPP tight end under $2,800. I think that would be Cole Turner if you're taking a shot on somebody today. Washington is out of the playoff hunt just in case they transition to youth here towards the end of the season. And then Tyler Higbee is another guy I love in tournaments. I'm stacking up the Rams fully today, so I want to get a lot of Tyler Higbee. And then some Logan Thomas, Darren Waller, Chigokongwo, and then a little bit of Dalton Schultz, George Kittle, Kelsey, and Njoku in my stacks as well. Let's pivot through tight end and defense really quick here. Give me who you like, and then so we got time for QQs.
Sorry, I was getting my lineups in. But tight end here, like I said, Njoku, Logan Thomas, Taysom Hill, McBride. Those are my main guys with everyone else that you mentioned before. That's what I'm riding with today. Defense-wise, Jets will be my most exposed defense, followed by the Rams. I do also like the Panthers and the Falcons. Packers a little bit too. Saints and Giants. Defense is obviously random, so you can play a little bit of everything. I also do like the Browns too.
Yeah, defense we were mostly on the same page for, so I'll go through my top ones. My top 2 are the Jets and the Cowboys. Love them this week. The Falcons are my next favorite, and the Giants I like as well if you need to go cheap. Pardon me. I tried to mute, but didn't see that one coming. So many colds going around right now. Let's go to some QQs. Smash that like button. I'm going to the RotoGrinders Discord live stream chat first. Then I'm going to YouTube. First question here. FanDuel single entry. Antonio Gibson and Debo or Rashad White and Rashee Rice. I think I like that first one a little bit more.
Gibson and Debo or Rice and who?
And Rashad White.
Yeah, definitely the first one.
FanDuel Cash, is Aaron Jones an elite play now that A.J. Dillon is out? No, I don't think he's an elite play. I think he is a strong tournament play, but I don't think I would want to go there in cash personally. FanDuel single entry, Derrick Henry, Rashad White, and Terry McLaurin, or CMC, Gibson, and Shaheed.
Second one.
Yeah, for me too. DK, GPP, tight end, punt. I need to punt at tight end. Should I go Knox or Chig? I would go Chig there. 10-man PPR league playoffs. Waddle or Garrett Wilson? Who would you go with there? So raw points, Waddle or Wilson?
It's full PPR?
Yes.
If it's full PPR, go Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Favorite single entry QB wide receiver stacks. For me, it's Stafford with all of them. It's Nakua, Kupp, and Robinson. Or if you just want something smaller, I do like what Rob had on the show before. DJ Moore skinny stack with Justin Fields. How about you?
I'm gonna go for single entry. You don't go too far. If you don't mind going, I'll give you an off the board one and a regular one. I like Brock Purdy. If you want to go pair him with Christian McCaffrey and one of either Ayuk or Debo or Kittle with one of those guys, I think it's fine. Or if you really want to go off the board, I like Will Levis paired with Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm gonna lightning round through the rest of these questions. So Rice or Shaheed on FanDuel. If it's a cash game, it's Rice. If it's a tournament, it's Shaheed. Mike Evans at 4% ownership. Is this a good one-off? Dre, I believe you like Mike Evans.
Yes.
FanDuel Cash, can you play 3 Packers, Reed, Jones, and Kraft? I would probably try and get Aaron Jones out of there and limit it to Reed and Kraft. I think 2 Packers would be as many as I'd want to go there. DK, GPP, I need a tight end under 2,800s. That was, I already forgot his name. The guy, the backup for Cole Turner, the backup for the Commanders. That was the super cheap punt tight end if we needed it. DraftKings Cash, Rashee Rice, Rashid Shaheed, and the Rams, or Puka, D-Rob, and the Jets. Ooh, baby, that's the second one. I love that second one for DK Cash. You're speaking my language. Kraft and CMC, or Ferguson and Kyron, Dre. No format.
Kraft or CMC. Who's the other one in Kyron?
Ferguson. Jake Ferguson.
First one.
Keenum and Noah Brown about to win me $1 million. I don't hate that take. AK Boy 305. I got me some case Keenum and Noah Brown teams too.
Love Noah Brown today, by the way.
Yeah, I like Noah Brown as well. I think he's going to go lower owned because people are going to see 2 donuts in his game log there, but he was still getting some targets. I think he's interesting here. Rice, Shaheed, and Rams, or Puka, D-Rob, and Jets. That is the second one, the Puka, D-Rob, and Jets. QQ, the QB to play in the Millie Maker is, I think it's Stafford, and I want to play him just stack him with more receivers than more people are doing. If you need somebody super sneaky, I like the Justin Fields call from the show before, and Dre, you liked Brock Purdy for the Millie, I believe.
Brock Purdy and Will Levis.
Brock Purdy and Will Levis. Tournaments, CeeDee Lamb or Christian McCaffrey. For me, that's Christian McCaffrey, even though he's going to be higher owned. Doug Harrelson says, I'm putting Purdy in cash every single week until I lose money doing so. I'm fearless. I don't hate that at all. Kupp or Puka. I actually think the answer is Puka Nacua, but the better answer is both. The better answer is both of these guys. A FanDuel cash tight end at under $6,400. I'm going to pull up FanDuel once again right now. I believe McBride is under $6,400. So if he is, that's the answer. If he's not, I'll give you somebody else, but I'm just double checking that quick. McBride's 66. So no. So the answer, I would go all the way down to Tucker Kraft and upgrade somebody else. If you don't want to change all your lineup, 1 minute to lock, go to David Njoku.
Yes.
DeMarcus Robinson or Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice in cash, DeMarcus Robinson in tournaments. If I like my cash lineup on DK but can only afford past D, do I do it or do I rebuild? Leave it. It's defense. Who cares? Mahomes throws picks this year anyways. FanDuel cash, CMC and Arizona D or Kyron and Carolina D. Oof, I would actually probably go.
That's tough. I'll take the first one.
It's just I don't like that's Arizona D against CMC, so I think I would probably go Williams and Carolina on that one.
It just depends on. Well, yeah, we're at lock though. But I was gonna say because we don't CMC. His upside is even at his price. His upside is just so tremendous. He can put up a 50 spot, and you might still need him, and that defense won't matter. That's the only reason why I say that.
FanDuel cash, is it okay to have 2 Packers in cash? Reed and Kraft, yes, that's no problem at all. Using a 4-player Titan stack with Hutchinson as a run back, large field GPP on DK, my donkey for doing so. I don't think you're a donkey, but I think it's a little too aggressive for me.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. No.
JSN or Demario Douglas, half PPR for fantasy playoffs. I would go I would go Demario Douglas on that one, and that'll do it. We have hit lock. We have hit all of the QQs, and we got more content coming throughout the day. I'm going to be on the pre-lock show with Chief later. Tim and I are going to be on the NBA Crunch Time later as well. And we got expert survey. I got a prize picks article coming for NFL tonight. And then, of course, there's so much great content on RotoGrinders, scores and odds, all for the NFL, NBA, and even NHL slates today as well. So make sure you're checking that out. As Doug Harrelson says in chat, let's get rich. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Make sure you smash that like button for us, subscribe, hit the notification bell on your way out. And thank you so much for the great show, everybody. On behalf of myself, Dre, Steve behind the scenes, Tim, Bobby, and Dean in the first show. We had Eric and Rob on the second show. On behalf of everybody, let's make some money today. Good luck. See you later.